What a start to the morning. Yeah. You know how it goes sometimes. Sometimes it's like 7:30 in the morning. too late, gotta drink it. Yeah, I think if I had a vodka seltzer right now, I would be fully drunk. Lace Taro, thank you for the tier 1. Sick, thank you for the 11 months. Siren Blue, thank you for the 42 months. Can't be wasting vodka like that. Oh, I put it back in the fridge. Oh, sure. Just mix it with a little Red Bull. Yeah. Hey, Caroline, are you going to cover the Louis Theroux Manosphere doc at some point, or have you already? Yeah, I do want to watch it. I have not been able to. I think, and I haven't seen it yet. And I did read a lot of like good reviews on it, but I think one of my problems, and I've expressed this before, is that there is so much constant coverage and like centering of these manosphere creators, and there's so little attention that's paid to women and girls who are harmed by this, you know? And I know in the doc there's like, it does feature some of their girlfriends and wives, I don't know. But yeah, I just have felt this way for a while, that there is so much constant focus and centering of these really hateful, horrible, misogynistic, sexist men, you know, manosphere creators, whether it's like every single fucking mainstream publication constantly writing profiles and pieces. So I'm not saying like, shame on you, Louis Theroux. And I know that there's like some interesting points in this doc. It was very interesting to see one of the guys interact with his mom. Yeah, I think my just overall feeling is, when are we going to really focus on how women and girls are impacted by this? Either ones who are radicalized themselves or ones who are just on the receiving end. But what about more men in the spotlight? Yeah. I'm just like, so I'm a little tired of the constant talk about men. And I know like men are often talked about as far as the loneliness epidemic goes. Everybody's lonely. Everyone's lonely. But it's the way that, of course, men who are drawn down these pipelines behave so violently and so abhorrently. So I don't know. Anyway, long story short. Long answer, long. Yes, I'm going to watch it and give my thoughts, but it's just kind of how I feel overall. Seemed like it needed that as its own separate part, the source of it, those men, and then a documentary about the victims. Yeah. Even with the documentary about sexist, misogynistic men, it's still centering men instead of how they affect women. Look at how they're affecting young boys. Yeah, there's just not enough. There's not enough coverage here. Not enough focus on. Not enough focus on the effects on women and girls. Hold on a sec. Caroline, I have a meeting that technically starts 11 by Div. Okay. Sorry. So the reason that I'm live this morning is because I have Kat TENBARGE and Kylie Cheung coming on at 10 o'clock. And we are going to talk about stuff that I talk about all the time here and that I have had Kat on multiple times to discuss. But Kylie is a new friend. Kylie's a new friend on the show. So I'm really excited to have them both on today. And I know we are all sick and tired of talking about CHAPPELL ROAN, but unfortunately, the way that I always evaluate and analyze stuff like this is that it actually is that deep. It actually is that deep. It's always that deep. And as stupid as it is, don't get me wrong, the origins of this latest explosive smear campaign against Chappell is so unbelievably stupid. You would think that she was a mass child murderer the way that people just keep going and going and going and going. But it is that deep because of what this represents. And I posted about this yesterday, and I said, look, well, there's just like too many things to respond to. So I picked this one because this was something that I saw going viral. And people who, a lot of the people who I see really, really, really hardcore going after Chappell are either stan accounts, people who it's like are, why are you Britney Spears account? Why are you Britney Spears account and you're going after Chappell Roan? Hello? Do you know nothing about what Britney Spears went through and why someone like Chappell advocates for herself and for others on with not being victim to harassment and stalking? And do you understand any of this? Anyway, so it's this like bizarre thing with this often being stan accounts who are driving a lot of this and who are pulling up everything that they can. And these are people who they don't stop. And it's always curious to kind of wonder and inquire, like, why as a stan account, what's your motivation here? And a lot of them too, a lot of these accounts are like pop culture accounts that I follow. There were multiple pop culture accounts that I follow that were saying some of the most reprehensible things. There was one of them that has like a pretty decent platform on Twitter that said, Chappell Roan is the biggest piece of shit. I do not hate any artist the way that I hate Chappell Roan. I was like, okay, you know what? You need to unpack that. As a pop culture account, as someone who primarily posts about pop girlies, okay, about pop stars, pop girlies, and is seemingly tapped into pop culture history, how the fuck are you so heavily going after Chappell here, considering how many of the modern pop girlies like Sabrina Carpenter have said that she has inspired them to stand up for themselves more? And of all of your understanding of pop culture, you're really going to say that Chappell Roan is the artist that you hate the most? That's just crazy. Like, that is truly, truly crazy. Tritus, thank you for the Prime. Lights, come on. Thank you for the 3 months. Man Spider, thank you for the Prime. Norks African, thank you for the 6 months. Crystal Roses, thank you for the 3 months. Lace, thank you for the 3 months. Sick, thank you for the 11 months. So I posted in response to this and I said, look, this is Bryce Gruber, who is a hardcore Zionist, like influencer, businesswoman. She moved her family from New York to Israel. She posts crazy things like Israel is the most important decolonization project of all time. Hence, that's why they have to like commit genocide and destroy the Middle East. And she made this video that is like calling it's a snark video against Chappell Roan. And this is being shared by a lot of people right now as proof of Chappell Roan being the most evil person to ever live.
But basically, if your name rhymes with Snapple, I want to remind you that media record all of our interviews. We have little recorders. They're on our phones. We keep the interview.
What do you mean? First of all, she's not a journalist, by the way. She's not a journalist. I don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
So when I tell you that a lot of my colleagues pass around their interviews with you, Snapple, that should come as a little bit of a warning, because you fat shame.
Also, Snapple, grow up.
Unkind.
Grow
you
up.
Belittle certain races, certain religions, And on top of that, basically anyone who has kids instantly becomes your enemy. I'm not sure why. That's
Okay, so there's this other thing too, and I've seen this pushed very heavily by like conservative trad wife, MAGA, kind of that world. And so it's very bizarre to see a lot of people who are running with this as well. And I'm like, is everybody a conservative trad wife? What is happening? And what it is coming after CHAPPEL for trying to claim that she just hates children, which I don't care. Okay, I am going to say this a million times, especially when Kylie and Kat are on. I don't care because none of that matters. And it is so disingenuous the way that people go through the archives, try to dig anything up because there's nothing. There is nothing here of legitimate substance. And now they're pushing this narrative. Oh, CHAPPEL ROAN hates kids because she went on Call Her Daddy and said, all my kids who have friends are in hell. She's 26 years old. I can imagine that her friends who are in their 20s or just her friends who have children are struggling. Like, do you think that's an easy thing? Like, that's very honest. And that's not her saying children are evil. I think they should all die. That's people like Zionists who feel that way about Palestinian children. FYI, these children are terrorist babies, so we should kill them. So it's just this like really classic conservative laced weird ass traditionalist freak shit that, again, so many people, because they're just sharing anything and everything right now, they don't care the origins of it. They don't care the motivations behind it. Okay, so anyway.
craziness. But what I will tell you is that I don't want to be in a room with any snapples.
Also, you notice that she said here,
because you fat shame, you are unkind, you belittle certain races, certain religions.
oh, belittle certain races and religions. Again, CHAPPEL ROAN, who's a global pop star, is very openly pro-Palestine and has been openly pro-Palestine for a minute now. I wonder if that is what's at the root here. Selena got killed by the president. Yes, I know. I mean, Christina Grimmie, Selena. There's so, I mean, I'm going to get into this more with Kat and Kylie.
On top of that, basically anyone.
Okay, so anyway, I said this is Bryce Gruber. She's a hardcore Zionist who moved her family from New York to Israel and posts shit like this. So many of you blindly share anything from anyone as long as it fits your preconceived notions and does not require of you any genuine reflection. People I know with kids say that sometimes about their kids. Normal people understand it's a joke. It's absurd. And yes, it is important to understand the motivations behind the constant smears against someone like CHAPPEL ROAN. She is a lesbian woman. She calls out harassment and abuse. She openly supports Palestine and trans rights. She hates MAGA and Trump. She has criticized the Democrats. She has called out the major record labels, so on and so forth. There are plenty of people who are motivated in turning the public against her, and there are plenty of you waiting in the wings as willing participants. FYI, misogynistic smear campaigns against celebrity women are a form of social conditioning. You think it doesn't matter because you think celebrities exist in a separate world with no bearing on the one we live in. Nope, this behavior impacts our broader culture and reinforces existing prejudices and harmful double standards. And that is exactly why I focus on this stuff so much. And I know people will look at me and go, oh, she's not a serious political commentator because she does celebrity news because she talks about celebrities and like, who cares about celebrities, right? These are all just rich, famous people. They are part of an elite class that we do not and never will belong to. So I don't care. You need to understand that we are all downstream from this. Okay. This is the real trickle down effect. After the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, the amount of men who used that playbook as they abused the women in their lives, who would refer to their wives and girlfriends as Amber Heards, after they abused them and then attempted to smear them. This had a chilling effect. It always has a chilling effect when people see someone who's very visible, see them being attacked, see this effort that is global, that is inescapable, then it freaks people out, and it makes them it makes them go, God damn. When you see the public turn like this, you feel like, well, what could happen to me then? You feel like it just reinforces this. It reinforces this silence. It reinforces this notion that if you as a woman speak up, if you advocate for yourself, if you challenge any power, then they will fucking come for you. Kagger, thank you for the 35 months. Kwasin, thank you for the tier 1. Saver 1, thank you for the 9 months. So I say this over and 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 over because I need people to understand. I love you, Caroline, but the Amber Heard example is really bad. I watched every second of that trial. She was 100% the abuser. You are objectively wrong. You are objectively wrong. And I need you to understand that what you fell for was propaganda. What you fell for was a smear campaign that we know was organized, that originated from the same public relations group that ran the smear campaign against Blake Lively as well. Do you know, prior to that defamation trial, because that's what it was a defamation trial, do you know that Johnny Depp sued The Sun in the UK after they posted about him that he is a wife beater? And UK libel laws are so insane that it is very hard for a media publication company like The Sun in this instance to win a trial like this. But they did. And it is because they proved 12 out of 14 counts. They proved in court 12 out of 14 counts of abuse against Johnny Depp. Like, this is a trial that people always fucking forget about. And what happened then is later Amber Heard had written a piece. It was an opinion piece that she wrote. And she did not even name Johnny Depp when she talked about, here, I will pull it up. Let me link this for you. This is the piece. Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. That is what Johnny Depp then sued Amber Heard over for defamation. This is what's so frustrating to me. Here's what's so fucking frustrating and kills me. I do not have time every single stream to go through the whole thing again. I do not have time. And every time I mention Amber Heard's case, because it is a pivotal case. And as leftists, if you are still pushing this notion that Amber Heard was the abuser, congratulations. You have still continued to fall for a smear campaign that was highly effective, that people like Asmongold used as entertainment. And because his views were so astronomical, that is why Asmongold right now is every day on Twitch doing what he is doing. That is why that roach who still pushes this shit saw the response, saw the reward for turning an abuse trial into entertainment, and for doing just the most abhorrent smearing of Amber Heard, which is why he's doing this now. So for those of you who obsessively follow Asmongold and are always like, ooh, what's he said next? Will you at least understand how we got to this point? And that point was the trial, okay? And that so many people, including some of y'all now who are like, look at this roach. I can't believe the shit he says. I'm sure you watched his streams. I'm sure you were in agreement with him. So anyway, I do not have time. And if that means that you're like, oh, Caroline is just then leave. I don't care, because I cannot hold every person's hand individually and walk them through this. What I will say over and over again is that if you do not understand the disastrous effects that resulted from the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, which is what we are seeing all over the place, the effects of that trial, that being a prime example of abuse being turned into slop entertainment, which is why we can't get out of that. We just keep doing it. And also how effective smear campaigns are, that people use that playbook that Johnny Depp's team used. They use that now against normal, non-famous, non-wealthy women and girls all the time. All the time. That Amber Heard became a slang term for a woman who is a victim of domestic violence. And what's so frustrating, and I will never get over, unfortunately, there were few leftist voices who were clear and correct on this matter. Because the truth is that people don't give a shit when abuse happens to women. And leftists look at rich white women as this like group of people who they can essentially be misogynistic and sexist towards, and it doesn't matter because they're rich white women. But what they're doing is by doing that, they are siding with rich, wealthy white men. Which is often, I mean, not just specifically rich, wealthy white men, but in the case of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, the person who had more money and more power in that situation, that's who you assisted, because you looked at Amber Heard as a rich, white, famous woman and went, I don't give a shit. Because people do not understand that smear campaigns against celebrity women are a form of social conditioning. Yes, you are creating a permission structure by allowing misogyny against famous white women. Yes. It's exhausting, and it is a battle. It is a battle constantly, because people saw the overwhelmingly negative response against Amber, all of the horrible nicknames, all of the memes, all of the smears, and to this day they still believe that, because they didn't care enough to actually understand what was going on. And afterwards, and in the couple years since, there has been more of an understanding as to what the hell all went wrong. And some people who have gone, you know what, I was wrong on that, but not enough. And we excuse it by saying that they are celebrities. They aren't real human beings. It was so effective that when I underwent a mental break after a breakup, I was called an Amber Heard by people I considered friends at the time. I'm so sorry that happened. And unfortunately, that's a prime example of how Amber Heard's name then became synonymous with crazy lying women who we like to ascribe that label to all the time. Thank you for always helping fight this fight. You give me hope. I'm telling you, it is it is exhausting though, because so much of trying to fight, trying to educate and fight against this shit today feels demonstrably, immeasurably harder because of that case as a catalyst. And unfortunately, like I said, this was across the board, as it tends to be across the political aisle. Across the political aisle, this is what happens when they are high profile celebrity cases involving abuse. That there are few people on this side who are delicately trying to explain the actual facts, trying to explain the way that this stuff is so effective. These smear campaigns are so effective because of what they are rooted in. And because this is this is a long history here. This is a long history of punishing women who we perceive to be a problem because they are not behaving in the way that we require of women. Sorry. Hey, y'all. I'm sorry. I've only seen negative coverage of Amber. I was totally manipulated. I literally saw no positive coverage. Exactly. Even my sister's anti-Amber. She's pretty progressive. Really sad. Because why would people, even when they were progressive, still not be understanding that Johnny Depp, somebody who for years and years and years has been a problem. Like, that's the crazy thing. Prior to Amber Heard too, Johnny has always been deeply, deeply a problem. The way that he behaves on film sets, where he would be high and drunk and causing issues, that he behaved abusively to former partners. His reputation was as an unprofessional, chaotic, abusive piece of shit, but it still didn't matter because of the way that we excuse men's misconduct. I would suggest Kat TENBARGE, who is coming on later, who has done a ton of really important reporting for a few years at this point. She was one of the few people when this case happened in 2022 who was reporting on the other side of things. And she was smeared. She was the recipient of so many death threats, of course, because that's what happens. And she was pretty alone for the most part in her in her reporting. So like, she has a lot of really great pieces on Spitfire News, which is her Substack now. Because the thing is, and this is something people still don't understand, if somebody is abusing me over and over and over again, they get drunk, they throw things, they scream at me, they say horrific things. When I finally reach a breaking point and I fight back, that does not make me the primary abuser. That's what we call reacting to abuse. What we refer to as reactive abuse, where somebody who has been in an abusive situation finally reaches a breaking point and reacts to the abuse they are experiencing. But the way that when, this isn't, in most cases, it's not publicized to the entire world because most cases of abuse involve normal, non-famous people just by like virtue of most people in this world not being celebrities. So we don't see that televised, but societally, we are still conditioned to believe that a woman fighting back, and I'm using woman in this example because of the cases we're talking about, but abuse victim fighting back, that is abuse. And a lot of times what happens is because abusers are manipulative, because it's all part of the psychological strategy to push and push and push someone. And then when they snap, then there comes the gaslighting. Then there comes the, then there comes the turning things around, the Darvo of it all, and behaving as if the person you are abusing is the actual abuser in the situation. It's like being mad at those cases where the woman ends up killing their abuser. She was defending herself because no one cared to help her. Because people reach a breaking point. And because the way that we have been socially conditioned to view how women should be versus how men should be, when women do not take abuse in silence, when they speak up, when they report it, when they try and go public with it, when they try and do anything to fight back against their abusers, oftentimes we condemn them for that because, again, the social conditioning here, the way that men's misconduct, the way that men in general are expected and allowed to be versus how women are allowed to be. The Amber Heard jokes regarding her behaviors did numbers in my friends group. Even then, we were decently progressive 16-year-old girls, but we really should have known better. We mindlessly spewed so much misogyny. And look, it happens. It does. We all will fall for this stuff because of how deeply ingrained misogyny and sexism is in our society. I just gave a speech the other night where I said, look, I feel those instincts too. I feel instinctively to be like, ooh, well, what did she? Oh. And the reason that I check it, the reason that I always am doing internal reflection is because I understand that is so deeply ingrained in me that I am not infallible. And look, nobody is saying that there are no women in this world who are abusive. Nobody is saying that. But what people like me are always trying to point out is that social conditioning are the different gender, the double standards, the double gender standards, the way that we just treat men versus the way that we treat women, and the differences between how, depending on your gender, you are expected and allowed to behave. I still don't believe Amber Heard or Alice Evans. Okay, Echo Giraffe. I'm not gonna sit here and spend 2 hours trying to change that because it's clear you don't want to believe that. It's clear. And look, you as someone who's been abused, that is a terrible thing that happened to you, but that does not mean that you are then, as somebody who was a victim of abuse, correct in every instance. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have been a victim of domestic violence or sexual abuse, and unfortunately still contribute to this these harmful attitudes around abuse and victims of abuse, and still contribute to smear campaigns when they happen to famous women because of our social conditioning. So I am sorry that happened to you. I'm also someone who's experienced that, as a lot of us have. And it doesn't mean that by you being an abuse victim, that you are correct in every instance. Like, it doesn't mean that. And I can't do anything because, like I said, it's clear that you don't want to believe that Amber Heard was abused, despite the lawsuit that Johnny Depp lost in the UK, where a judge ruled that 12 out of 14 incidents of domestic violence had occurred, that there was ample evidence to prove that. So, like I said, every time, here's a new smear campaign against CHAPPEL ROAN. And in examining the shared roots here, one of which is misogyny, I always have to bring up Amber Heard's case because of how unbelievably disastrous the consequences have been, and because a lot of what we continue to see now is a result of that case. The way that this plays out in the court of public opinion, the way that people so quickly and honestly gleefully jump onto whatever the main narrative here, which is usually this woman's a liar, this woman's a bitch, this woman needs to be taken down. At the time of the trial, I didn't really keep up with it, but hearing you talk about it, I definitely want to do my research. I don't doubt Amber was the one being abused as someone who's been sexually abused by partners in the past. I just ask that people are willing to understand when they have fallen for a smear campaign. And that's what this was. And we know that this was the same public relations group that has worked, that is connected with Epstein. Melissa Nathan and Tag, who popped up in the Epstein files, who worked for Justin Baldoni. Like, this is a very notorious PR group that is quite effective at this point at smearing women who are victims of sexual abuse and sexual misconduct. Western leftists grab the implication the wrong way as well, rather than dismissing the issue because white women, the whole point should have been that if this can happen to celeb white women, how much power do regular women hold, let alone POC women? I know, and unfortunately, people still don't get it. A lot of leftists still don't understand it. I know people straight up will not pay attention to what I'm saying. One, because I refuse to keep participating in these clear and obvious smear campaigns. I refuse to say, you know what? I give up. You're right. Amber Heard was the abuser in this situation. You're totally right. Johnny Depp, free him from what? I don't know. From his from his addiction, like free him from being abusive on film sets to other people. Like, what are we freeing him from? Free him from himself. I don't know. But yeah, people who just tune me out because they go, oh God, she's defending Amber Heard. Okay, opinion discarded. Clearly this woman is stupid. Or tune me out because they don't think they chalk this up as celebrity news and go, this is not important. There are more important things that are happening. And I will just say again what I wrote here, that this is a form of social conditioning. You think it doesn't matter. You think celebrities exist in a separate world with no bearing on ours. You think that if these cases involve rich white women, which a lot of times they don't, because you want to know what happened to Meg the Stallion? Meg, who's a black woman, was also a victim of a smear campaign, victim of abuse, but victim of a smear campaign as well, from people who wanted to defend Tory Lanez. Okay, so this happens to not just white women in Hollywood. And Meg is still being smeared. She did win that one. She did win that trial. She won her civil defamation trial last year against a blogger who was targeting her and coordinating a social media campaign to defame and harass her. So at least she won her trial against that fucking piece of shit. So I need to move on. And like I said, every single time I bring up Amber Heard's name, it's like this automatic response from people where they go, oh, yeah, but that woman was horrible. Oh, but in that situation, she was actually a lying bitch. And I just simply can't walk people through things every time. So like, please just go. And I'm sure you've never done this, but please go now and do a little bit of research, do a little bit of reading, because like I said, at the time there were few people, Kat was one of them, who was accurately reporting on the situation. But since then, there has been there have been some amends. There have been some, ooh, we were wrong on this situation. Read about what happened in the UK. Yes. And just always be examining and re-examining these deeply ingrained prejudices, because I promise you, they are clouding your assertion of so many situations, whether or not you are aware of it. I promise you, this is what happens when we are conditioned from the moment we are born, is that you're not even aware of when this is affecting how you view something. So, anywho, we will be talking about this more. We will be talking about the chapel of it all in just a little bit, but I see this kind of stuff, and it's
breaking news to bring you. A jury has now found social media commentator and blogger.
Oh, I was like, where's that coming from? That's from the Meg thing that I pulled up. Here, actually, you know what? I'm just going to read this piece real quickly, and then we're moving on. This piece was originally published in the Washington Post. Does not mention Johnny Depp's name. This is what he sued her for defamation over after he had lost, the UK, that was 2020. Okay, yes. She wrote this. 2020 was when he lost the libel case. 2022 was the defamation suit. I was exposed to abuse at a very young age. I know certain things early on without ever having to be told. I know that men have the power, physically, socially, financially, and that a lot of institutions support that arrangement. I knew this long before I had the words to articulate it, and I bet you learned it young too. Like many women, I'd been harassed and sexually assaulted by the time I was of college age, but I kept quiet. I did not expect filing complaints to bring justice, and I didn't see myself as a victim. Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Friends and advisors told me I would never work again as an actress, that I would be blacklisted. A movie I was attached to recast my role. I had just shot a 2-year campaign as the face of a global fashion brand, and the company dropped me. Questions arose as to whether I would be able to keep my role of Mara in the movies Justice League and Aquaman. I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Imagine a powerful man as a ship like the Titanic. That ship is a huge enterprise. When it strikes an iceberg, there are a lot of people on board desperate to patch up holes. Not because they believe in or even care about the ship, but because their own fates depend on the enterprise. In recent years, the Me Too movement has taught us about how power like this works, not just in Hollywood, but in all kinds of institutions. Workplaces, places of worship, or simply in particular communities. In every walk of life, women are confronting these men who are buoyed by social, economic, and cultural power. And these institutions are beginning to change. We are in a transformative political moment. The president of our country has been accused by more than a dozen women of sexual misconduct, including assault and harassment. Me Too, outrage over his statements and behavior has energized a female-led opposition. Me Too started a conversation about just how profoundly sexual violence affects women in every area of our lives. And last month, more women were elected to Congress than ever in history with a mandate to take women's issues seriously. Women's rage and determination to end sexual violence are turning into a political force. We have an opening now to bolster and build institutions protective of women. For starters, Congress can reauthorize and strengthen the Violence Against Women Act. First passed in 1994, the act is one of the most effective pieces of legislation enacted to fight domestic violence and sexual assault. Like, just a reminder that we live in a country that not too long ago, marital rape was not considered rape. Okay, so for as much progress as we've had leading up to this year we are in, 2026, let's not forget, not too long ago, women who were raped in their marriages, that was not considered to be rape. Women were not allowed to divorce their husbands if it was considered to be a no-fault divorce. Like, just the institutional oppression, the prevention of exercising freedom. Couldn't own a credit card. Yeah. That we still experience today, even though now women can own a credit card, women can get divorced. Marital rape is considered rape, but we are still dealing with, unfortunately, institutional biases. And as we know, the difficulty in pursuing legal means when you are victim of sexual and domestic violence. We should continue to fight sexual assault on college campuses while simultaneously insisting on fair processes for adjudicating complaints. Last month, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos proposed changes to Title IX rules governing the treatment of sexual harassment and assault in schools. While some changes would make the process for handling complaints more fair, others would weaken protections for sexual assault survivors. For example, the new rules would require schools to investigate only the most extreme complaints, and then only when they are made to designated officials. Women on campuses already have trouble coming forward about sexual violence. Why should we allow institutions to scale back supports? I write this as a woman who's had to change my phone number weekly because I was getting death threats. For months, I rarely left my apartment, and when I did, I was pursued by camera drones and photographers on foot, on motorcycles, and in cars. Tabloid outlets that posted pictures of me spun them in a negative light. I felt as though I was on trial in the court of public opinion, and this is before the actual trial. And my life and livelihood depended on myriad judgments far beyond my control. I want to ensure that women who come forward to talk about violence receive more support. We are electing representatives who know how deeply we care about these issues. We can work together to demand changes to laws and rules and social norms, and to right the imbalances that have shaped our lives. Yet again, women having to fight for basic decency. Yeah, so Anyway. Anywho. I feel it's the few cases of legitimate false reports made by a few alpha women that's allowed some women to believe. Some people to believe that every case is the same and immediately see women as lies. Sure, but ultimately, the actual issue is that violence against women is not taken seriously. So, false rape cases that are very, very, very small percentage are often cited as a reason to not take abuse seriously. And it's like, man, you think false rape allegations ruin men's lives? Real rape allegations, real sexual and domestic allegations do not ruin men's lives. But yeah, it is used as way overly representative, of course, and just completely exaggerated. Meanwhile, most rape cases are never even reported. Yeah, most rape cases are never even reported. So that would skew the percentage of false rape to real rape even more. Were every instance of rape reported. Men are statistically more likely to be sexually assaulted than falsely accused of sexual assault. Yeah. People don't see women as people. It's a bigger societal issue. Yeah. Why do you think Jeffrey Epstein and his associates abused girls and women for so long? Why do you think we are always seeing instance after instance of these really horrible, really horrible situations involving abuse? I think once you understand that a lot of what's at play is just the dehumanizing and the dehumanizing of girls and women, and just total demeaning of their total demeaning of their rights as people. Okay. Anyway, I gotta talk about I gotta talk about some other stuff before I have this chat. Bruce Guy, thank you for the 7 months. That Single Grape, thank you for the 2 months. Corporate AF, thank you for the 13 months. God, I'm too tired and it's too early in the morning. And every single time, I swear when I do these morning streams, the conversation ends up here and I'm like, good Lord, it's too early and I'm too fucking tired. Reezer, thank you for the gifted. The bigger issue is how media thrives on this. The outrage, humiliation, destruction, it all gets clicks. Narratives around abuse get twisted into something consumable. And when everything is driven by profit and attention, it creates a culture that normalizes tearing people apart. We reward it. We participate in it. Shapes how we see these serious issues. Absolutely. And one difference between like the 90s and 2000s, which we reference all the time when we talk about how unbelievably vile the media machine was towards famous women. One difference between that era and now is the internet. And the internet plays a massive role now because of its global usage, because we live in a very online world, because it is a major communication platform. And so you have all these different mechanisms that are all interconnected. And that's the machine. And now it's like the misinfo spreads so fast. People who people who participate in this type of, frankly, modern day witch trials, these smear campaigns, and it is entertainment. It is something that there is an element here where people love to jump in on this stuff because also it gives them a feeling of control. Like, I think this gives people the sense of power. It gives them it for a lot of people also because they see it as low stakes. They see this as, again, entertainment, that it's fun. And let me just tell you, if you ever want to get a sense too of how much women hate other women, spend 5 minutes on snark pages. Spend 5 minutes on subreddits that are pop culture focused. Holy shit. It will kill you. It will truly devastate you because a lot of the people who participate in these forums and are the main drivers of this are women. It's so bad. It is so bad. Seeing, I was on FOMO. I was on FOMO just to kind of get a sense, even though it was already what I had expected, but to get a sense of how they were all talking about Chapel. And there was so much misogyny and homophobia. Just saying FOMO gave me the ick. Yeah, there was so much of both of those. It is disgusting. And also because people look at it as gossip, right? People look at it as gossip, which means that they can go fully mask off. When they think that, like I said, this is low stakes, that it's celebrity gossip, that it's just entertaining snark, then they will fully reveal just how deeply ingrained these prejudices are. Every single comment on the People magazine post about Chapel was a woman. Yes, so many women who are like calling her a fucking bitch and a lying cunt, and that it's time for, it's time for the Chapel era to be over. The comment section is horrific. It is a nightmare being there because as a woman who is me and always trying to always trying to change the narrative here and move the needle forward, it is really devastating to see how many women participate in this. And so that's what sucks is like there are a lot of women who, a lot of great women, and a lot of y'all who are in this community and other communities like this, and you get it, you understand, you're fighting this fight too. But the reality is, like, for someone such as me, it feels as if I'm often fighting on both fronts. And often some of the most vile hate and the most hurtful hate comes from women. When I see the way that they not only will fight me tooth and nail, but feel justified and even more cutthroat because I'm a fellow woman, that I'm like, I know you are not going after a man like this. I know it. I'm getting a PTSD flashback to the Lindsay Ellis down, Jenny Nicholson to go Twitter that completely brain broke me. Yeah. It's like, man. The initial Chapel FOMO post was brigaded by soccer fans, but other than that, most of the people I've seen caught on to this being a smear campaign real quick. r/pop culture chat, on the other hand, few. I don't know. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it's a mix of both, but it was not good. Okay, let's talk about this Alan Richardson. Let's talk about this Alan Richardson thing. So when I first started to see a little noise around this, a little bit of reporting on this. The way that it initially came off is that Alan Ritchson, who is an actor, he stars in the show Reacher. He's a big beefy dude. He's like one of these Hollywood chads whose neck is probably this thick because he's full of muscles. And he looks like a guy who I think MAGA initially assumed was one of theirs. They're like, look at this dude. This is one of our guys. Okay. This is one of our guys. And then Alan Ritchson made it quite clear that he is not one of them. And he, I think, is like when he was wearing a shirt that said arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor, advocating for social justice causes. So MAGA hates him. Hello, first time catching your stream. Hello, Lil Joy Bean. Welcome in. MAGA hates him. And he's not somebody that I think he's not like a super, super famous actor. So I think maybe most people aren't really paying attention. But specifically, MAGA people, MAGers hate him because of his liberal social justice cause whole thing. So this comes out that supposedly Alan Ritchson had beat the shit out of some neighbor of his. And people were like, what? Alan Ritchson beat up a neighbor of his because he was speeding down in the suburb and this neighbor tried to stop him, and then Alan Ritchson went all Reacher on his ass and tried to kill him, whatever. No, okay. Here's what happened. Also, C. Wasson, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you so much. Bubba Trunk, thank you for the 6 months.
Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Stand in front of a...
Okay, let me just play this again. He is going at a normal... He has a GoPro. He has a GoPro, by the way. And thank God he had a GoPro, because this is what recorded the whole thing. Okay. Here's the poor, innocent neighbor that Alan Ritchson had allegedly beat up after this guy called out him speeding at 100 miles per hour down the suburb. And you can see he gets in front of him. Okay. So then Alan Ritchson crashes on his bike. And he's like, what the fuck?
Of a fucking bike again, dude. But doing what? You threatened my fucking safety, bro. Are you kidding me? I should not be the fuck out of him. Go ahead, no doubt. Go ahead. I've called the BPD. I've called them already because you've been driving around this fucking neighborhood like a fucking lunatic. Ruining this kid's...
Also, this guy's British.
Running around here. Go ahead. Go ahead. Are you drunk right now, bro? Go ahead. Are you drinking? Go ahead. Call the police. Out of your fucking mind, dude. Call the police.
Also, he's with his kids, by the way. You can see there. He was driving with they were all riding together down the street.
I should have run you over, dude.
Also, this music is killing me. This music is frying me. And this guy is just screaming. And he just gets in his way again. He should, you know what? He should have just run him over. He should have just run him over. And then the guy tries to fight him. So he's like, okay, now I have to kick your British ass. Now I'm gonna end your whole colonizing ass line. Okay, so you can hear him. He's like, I've got it on camera. That's assault. That's assault. And I think initially what was released was the British guy's camera. So he had the camera footage and he released the moment that Alan finally had to shoved him to the grass and was like, stay down, you fucking dog. Like that was the part which conveniently did not include the lead up to that. Anti-corporatist, thank you for the bits. Assault and battery! Assault and battery! That's assault!
All on camera. You're assaulting me is all on camera. Fucking moron.
Hold on, I'll look at the Chris Smalls thing after. Okay, so he and his kids leave. All right. Okay. So, local police have concluded that the Reacher star acted in self-defense during an explosive fight with his neighbor, Ronnie Taylor, on Sunday in the Nashville suburb of Brentwood, Tennessee. As such, police have closed the investigation and will not pursue any charges in the matter, which stem from an altercation involving the two men over Richson's motorcycle, which Taylor claimed was causing a noise disturbance. After reviewing available evidence, including video footage and witness statements, authorities determined that no criminal charges will be pursued. Mr. Richson's actions were found to be in self-defense. That is what we call a British L. The police chief added that Richson declined to pursue any charges of his own against the neighbor who admitted that he instigated the physical contact. Okay, watch this. This fucking guy goes on TMZ.
It started on Saturday morning and I'm an experienced motorcycle rider. I've been riding bikes all my life.
Goes on TMZ with his fucking scabby ass face, hoping that it'll elicit sympathy.
So, you know, from dirt bikes to street bikes and etc. But I'd heard this incestuous revving and speeding through our neighborhood.
Do you see the MAGA hat in the background?
Of the motorcycle. I eventually saw the guy on Saturday. I didn't know who it was. And I sort of like flippantly sort of said, "Guy, do you, like he was quite away." And I said, "Can you just slow it down, please?" And then there are numerous people in my neighborhood who call all of this on Ring doorbells of him speeding through the neighborhood.
Did he just say incestuous?
Sunday, when I was cleaning my bike outside my house, we rode past once, twice, and on the second time, I walked.
Like there is something extra loser about this British fuck being MAGA. Dude, you are so many layers of loser here.
And I said, "You've got to stop. Someone's going to get hurt."
Somebody's got to stop.
It escalated quite quickly from there. I did push him because he was coming towards me on his bike. He did it again for a second time. I pushed him a second time. And I think the second time he got it.
He was coming towards me. Dude, we all saw you step in front of his bike. You are lucky he didn't run you over and you caused him to fall on his bike.
And it kicked the crap out of me. And you can see he hit me in the back of my head. I went to the ground and covered myself. I've had such a shitty day today, and I don't wish the guy.
Dude, you are advertising your L's. You are advertising your fucking L's here. Ain't nobody giving you sympathy. Oh, he beat the shit out of you. Yeah, we know you deserved worse.
Or ill will, but we just don't need people riding through neighborhoods like this. And I just decided, I'm take a stand because Someone else has to, because it's going to end up way worse than it could have.
Somebody had to take a stand. You know what is so clear here is that this guy is one of these fucking losers who truly believes that he believes he's a hero in this situation. He's like, this is the Revolutionary War all over again, and I am fighting just like my ancestors did. And just like my ancestors, I lost. He's carrying the flame.
There's only people riding through neighborhoods like
Also,
this. And I just
Zulu
decided,
poster.
I'm take a stand because
I'm going to take a stand. Ain't no way this got community noted. Ronnie Taylor started the altercation by standing in the middle of the road, wanting Alan Richson to hit him with his motorcycle. Small dog syndrome in men really is fascinating to me because how are you going to look at 6'3" Alan Richson and say this man can't beat the ever living shit out of me? Again, he is so lucky. He is so lucky that Alan Richson did not do even worse to him. And I think maybe it's because his kids were there and he's like, bro, I'm with my children. What are you doing? And he was trying to walk away, and then this bozo just kept going after him. Alan Richson is also one of the nicest celebs I've met. I've heard a lot of really nice things about this guy. But again, as I said, Alan Richson is someone that maybe the general public doesn't pay attention to too much. They might recognize his face, but MAGA people hate his ass. They hate him. They are always trying to go after him. They post crazy shit on they post crazy shit underneath his Instagram posts and social media stuff. The restraint of a man who could fold him like a table and doesn't do so because his kids are around. And also because I think he's not this super violent person like the like British fuckface was trying to pretend that he was. TMZ broke the story over the weekend by publishing a video that featured Richson in an altercation with Taylor. The footage, now known to have been edited down from a longer clip, began with Taylor on the ground in a front lawn with Richson hovering over him and hitting him multiple times. However, a fuller picture emerged over the past 24 hours as additional clips surfaced, including footage from Richson's own body cam that showed Taylor rushing into the street to confront Richson and attacking him first. Taylor told TMZ on Monday that the situation unfolded over 2 days, beginning on Saturday when he claims to have witnessed Richson speeding through the neighborhood on a motorcycle and causing a disturbance. Taylor then claimed that he spotted Richson on his motorcycle again, this time on Sunday, joined by two individuals also on motorbikes, a pair that happened to be the actor's young sons. Why do MAGA people hate him? They hate him because he's woke. Taylor confronted Richson, and they hate him because he's woke, and they assumed he was one of theirs. Based on how he looks and the type of projects that he's in, they assumed that Alan Richson was a fellow maggot. Stupid, sexy Alan. Richson posted on IG a picture with the quote, "Never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake," before the full story came out. They hate him because they ain't him. They hate him because they ain't him and he ain't them. Richson, a known motorcycle enthusiast who posted on a Ducati for a THR cover story, is back in the United States after filming back-to-back movies in Australia and New Zealand. He stars in Netflix's War Machine, which just debuted on the streamer. They reunited Down Under for a project inspired by the... Yeah, so like, see what I mean by this guy? He looks like this, and he stars in the type of projects that he stars in. And so when it turned out that he's actually woke, maggots were upset. They were like, hold on a second. No. You're supposed to be one of ours. I think MAGA wanted to claim him because he's a Christian, but he made a video on his YouTube channel how people should stop using the word woke in a negative way. Yeah. They're like, wait. Because MAGA also, they think they all look like Alan Richson. Reacher Star doubles down on claim that cops get away with murder, touts. Yeah, this is in Fox News. See, they've gone after him. He trashed Christians who support former President Trump. Cops get away with murder all the time. And the fact that we can't hold them accountable for their improprieties is disturbing to me. We should completely reform the way that we do. I mean, you shouldn't have to spend more time getting an education as a hairstylist than as a cop who's armed with a deadly weapon. Yeah, so they hate his ass. Okay, let me see what this is here. Hold on a sec. Legit, thank you so much for the gifted. Situede Run, thank you for the 2 months. Ruby, thank you for the 31. Rachel Colleen, thank you for the Prime. Reezer, thank you for the gifted. Oh, damn, I also would have expected him to be MAGA. Chris Smalls posted on his IG story that he and others from the Nostra Convoy aid mission have been arrested at Miami airport. Reminder that Chris and other POC were singled out and assaulted by the IOF during the capture of the Samud flotilla mission to Gaza. We are getting detained at Miami airport right now. Here's an update from another volunteer. 14 of us have been detained in Miami International Airport upon returning from Cuba, including Chris Smalls, Chuck Modi, Katie Halper, and Oyaj. What the fuck is going on? I'm trying to see if there's more info here. Dude. You know, it's been so disgusting as well. Also, Joel, thank you for the 23 months. It's been so disgusting to see people smear Chris Smalls, call him, like, try and denigrate him by calling him an influencer, which, as I said before, I think it's good that influencers were on that humanitarian aid mission because the whole point is trying to get the word out. The point was to, like, bring attention to the crisis in Cuba that's being caused by the US government. But also, like, Chris Smalls is a labor organizer. Chris Smalls founded the Amazon labor union. Like, this guy is an activist and an organizer, and he was targeted by the IOF. He was assaulted. He was arrested and assaulted. It's honestly shocking to see the outrage against Chris specifically too. Yeah, it's really gross. It's like so many people who the most that they will ever do with their lives is make a disparaging tweet against someone who's actually taking action. And Chris has been repeatedly targeted by state power because he's a threat to state power. And he's another guy who, like Greta Thunberg, he's not on the same global level of, you know, fame as she is, but Chris went from being a worker at Amazon to leading an Amazon worker organization in Staten Island to forming a labor union to then getting involved with the Palestinian cause, going on the flotilla mission, was arrested and assaulted by the IOF. And then he got involved with the Cuba Nuestra Convoy mission. So he started off in one area, but has extended his work, extended his activism to others. And he's done a ton of he's amazing. He's done a ton of amazing things. He literally did the thing calling him an influencer so disrespectful and done on purpose. Yes, because if you call someone an influencer, everyone knows that that's an insult. Everyone knows that it means that like you don't have a real job, you're a clout shark, you're a disingenuous person, right? That's why a lot of people who've been smearing the convoy, the Cuba aid mission, have been using terms like that. When I was coming back into Miami from Cuba the other day, I was asked, how can I know that you didn't engage with any terrorist organizations while you were there? You're like, because I'm not you. They were calling Kat an influencer too. Yeah, the media was calling Kat an influencer. So the purpose of that being, don't take this person seriously. This person can't be in politics. They're just an influencer. Tiago Avila is also detained and being interrogated in Panama. Over 2 hours of interrogation so far. We lost communication with Tiago. Agent speaking English in Panama and being hostile was his last message. Yeah, I kind of figured something like this would happen. Because obviously Trump's administration was closely monitoring the aid mission, and obviously they do not want that getting, they don't want that happening. They didn't want it happening in the first place. They don't want it getting positive attention. I think the rush to get ICE in the airports on Monday was really sus and possibly related. Yeah, I mean, it's all related for sure. I was so tempted to say because the terrorists are in the U.S. government, not the Cuban one. Yeah, I think it's best in that situation that you just go. Okay. All right. Let me open this up. Whew. Brrr, beep, 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 beep. Okay, I'm gonna start this. Let me go to where's my all righty. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, and then I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna go deactivate. I'm gonna turn my video on. All right. That is looking good. And then I'm going to bring Kylie in. This is going to just take a second because Zoom is real. So hello.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to actually see your face and officially meet you, even though we have been texting.
I guess Kat must be running late, I guess.
Let me see what she said. And I know she's got to jump off at 11. She'll probably be here in a minute. So, Kat's here. Great. Okay. The gang's all together.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh.
Can you hear us? Kat? Okay, I can't hear you for some reason. Can you hear?
I can't hear her. I think muted. Oh my God. Is she silent or
Yeah.
silenced?
Oh.
Wait, what about?
Ooh.
Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
yes. Kat, were you silent or were you silenced?
Wait, can you? Is it working
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, amazing.
You are good to go. Okay, let me just get everything all looking nice and set up here. Beep, 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 beep. And then Kylie, we have your Kat, I have Spitfire News, your Blue Sky profile. Thank you, Katie, for pinning that. And then Kylie, I have your Twitter and then your website, Kylie Writes.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'm so excited to dive in, and I will tell you my plan when I went live. So I normally don't go live in the morning. I'm a nighttime streamer, but for my friends who have normal schedules, I will always jump on in the morning. But I told myself, I was like, okay, just cover other things before they come on. Don't get it. And then I couldn't help it. And then of course, the second I mentioned Amber Heard, every time I mention Amber Heard, I always have people in chat going, "Ew, but she's a lying bitch," or like, "No, she abused Johnny Depp." And I don't know. And I say this, and I go, I can't spend every time this happens. I cannot spend the time every time holding someone's hand and walking them through, because they also don't want to believe it. Like that's the thing, is that people will express, and they like, I will see it. They will chat it and say, well, I just don't believe her. And I cannot, I can't fundamentally change that in someone. I can tell them like, please go, if you're not going to listen to me, like just at least go read somebody else. I told them Kat has covered this. She was one of the few people in 2022 who was on the other side of things. She has some really, really important pieces of reporting on it. At least go read that. But I know they won't. They won't because they don't want to. And I think that perfectly kind of encapsulates all, like, why these smear campaigns keep happening, why so many people are happy to jump on the Chapel Roan hate train, because they want to, because they don't want to challenge or be challenged in their deeply held beliefs. And that's the thing that we have to dismantle, but that requires people to self-reflect. Anyway, so I know I'm jumping into things. You guys, let me just introduce who I have here. I'm already off to the races, but we have Kat TENBARGE, who I've had on multiple times at this point. Brilliant Kat TENBARGE writes for Spitfire News, which is her Substack. And then new friend, Kylie Cheung. And Kylie, you are also a brilliant writer, and we have her website linked there. And I had reached out when I saw this whole Chappell stuff. I had reached out to Kat because Kat is the perfect person to have on. And then I thought about Kylie because I know you guys are friends, and I saw some of Kylie's tweets and it gave me a moment of reprieve. And so I said, this seems like a dream team. Let's get the Avengers of defending Chappell Roan and calling out these stupid fucking smear campaigns together. So welcome in. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, I will always defend Chapel. Like that's my canceled wife, and I stand with my canceled wife forever.
Yes.
But I'm like so glad you brought up Amber Heard, even though like obviously in the context of like those horrible trolls and everything, because it's just like I think, I told both of you guys that like one of a really big regret of mine was that initially I wasn't like paying that close attention to, the trial and, the smear campaign against her, because I kind of saw that as like celebrity news. But what we saw very quickly was that how famous women are treated is often as like this stand-in or like this avatar for how we
Yes.
treat all women. And, how, it's all downstream of that. And it all contributes to this broader culture of like misogyny and violence against women, or denying women credibility, or denying like quote unquote difficult women like the benefit of the doubt, like in any situation, like whatever you hear about them, like whatever smears, you'll just like run with that. And yet, I think that it's not even just that like celebrity women or famous women are like this stand-in for all women, but like what we experience is, again, just like all downstream of that, where it's like after the Amber Heard trial, there was that uptick in abusers suing their victims for any degree of like speaking out about that experience. So it's like, so many people, whether they like will outright say like, I hate Chappell Roan or be a part of that hate train, some might like dismiss it as like celebrity nonsense and just like not really want to pay attention to like the harassment campaign against her. But like, I think there are very real world consequences for all women in terms of like how we treat women who are in the spotlight and want to not be treated like zoo animals and then are called like a bitch or a cunt because they don't want to be treated like an animal. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Someone literally quote tweeted you yesterday, I think, Caroline, talking about this and had included a screenshot of an article that was like a man who strangled his female partner had referred to her as Amber Heard during the attack. And like we
Ugh.
saw this, I remember doing a trend piece about the uptick in people using the phrase Amber Heard 2.0, which I still see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's literally a cultural narrative framing that has stuck because of that trial. And it is shorthand for Darvo and for blaming a woman and for just like smearing any woman who dares to violate a social norm.
Yeah, that is so dark. And I had brought that up earlier in my stream. And Kylie, I appreciate you sharing your perspective and your journey on understanding that this may be news that involves celebrities, but it's not something to wave off as celebrity news, as like this is a separate world from the world that the rest of us live in. And that is something that I'm always trying to explain to people. And so I think you being an example of someone who you felt that way when the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial was happening, and then you came to realize the the fact that this was a trial involving abuse. So it wasn't just like something that didn't matter, because abuse matters no matter who it's towards, but also then the downstream, the trickle down effects on broader culture. And that's why, as much as when we see this stupid fucking shit that people are going after Chappell Roan for yet again, it is that deep, though, to have these kinds of conversations to kind of just dismantle what's happening here because of the effects on broader culture. And that what's happening to Chappell is it's very transparent what this is rooted in, and yet so many people still refuse to see that. Like they don't care, or they just, again, don't believe that the way we talk about celebrity women has any bearing on the way that then things go for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. One
like
thing
there, oh, sorry, no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I was thinking, and I think we've talked about this too, how, like, to me, so much of this idea and culture feels informed by reality TV culture. And,
Yes.
like, this whole phenomenon of, like, bandwagon hate campaigns of specific women, villainizing specific women, giving them, like, the villain edit, and just wanting to see more of them so that you can hate on them. It feels so entrenched in our culture at this point. But to the point of like reality TV culture has matters and has an impact. Look at where Donald Trump came from. He literally like rose to prominence as a reality TV character who was then elected president. So this idea that
Mm-hmm.
pop culture is separate from politics or separate from like the rest of the world, or that it's in this like insular echo chamber, is not true. Like they are incredibly interconnected.
No, like absolutely. And like I'm gonna connect all of this to Chappell Roan, obviously, but looking at, connecting that what you were saying, Kat, to like the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, I think what really pulled me into that is like my background in like writing and reporting on sexual violence and then seeing, these classic strategies like Darvo, deny, attack, reverse
Yep.
victim offender, where, if the victim in any way responds to or reacts to abuse, then they are framed as the abuser. Whereas, like, if they didn't respond, they would be framed as it's not abuse because clearly they were fine with it or whatever. Like, there's no way to win. And you see all of, like, yes, these strategies were applied to a celebrity woman, but they're applied all the time, every day to women with so much less power. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, when that is like normalized and put on this giant stage that has consequences for everyone. And then, what I see really with like what's happening with Chapel Roan is like, I mean, even now and like I saw this with Blake Lively too. It's like people would post a picture of Blake Lively from 20 years ago with Harvey Weinstein, and they're like, it's just like I see this as like weaponized irrelevancy, if that makes sense. Like this tactic of like, okay, like so you're finding that like now people are saying, oh, Chapel Roan wasn't born into poverty, so it actually doesn't matter if we harass and like smear her or whatever.
Right.
Just like weaponizing these irrelevant things to justify a harassment campaign. Like these are not people who care. Like there's just no justification for harassing women, like whether or not 20 years ago they had a photo with Harvey Weinstein or whether or not their grandma has like more than $20 or something. You're like looking for anything to justify what you already wanted to do, which is harass a woman. And like whether that's a famous woman or whether that's anyone, like that's just how it is.
Yeah, and that's why this stuff doesn't end too, because once it starts, then people really dig their teeth into it. And that's when they start trying to pull up literally anything and everything they can. Oh my God, now Chappell actually grew up as a secret billionaire and she lied about being poor, and therefore nobody should be on her side. You're right. It's these attempts at justifying the hatred of her that we know is rooted in misogyny and homophobia. She is an outspoken lesbian woman whose music is very geared towards women loving women. And she does not present herself in a manner that is typical of pop stars, or certainly pop stars of the 2000s. And I think it's people looking for a reason, because part of me wonders how much awareness do they have when it comes to examining the real reasons that they've never liked someone like Chappell, and therefore look for any opportunity and participate anytime there is a current hate campaign against her. Like, how much do you guys think people come up with these justifications because they are trying to pretend as if this is relevant and it is valid?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
I think that is so much of like the impetus behind this, because I think the moment a lot of people really turned on Chappell was when she sort of made it clear that she was not going to fit the mold that has been established for how a pop star needs to behave. And you see this come up all the time. People, even the Daily Mail, I think today or yesterday, ran a headline that was like, people compare Chappell to Taylor Swift as like an example of how she should be
I saw that. Yeah.
behaving. And it's like, well, okay, what exactly do they want from her? They want her to perform submissiveness. They want her to perform traditional femininity. They want her to sing and create music about men and boys. They want her to perform heteronormativity. They want her to do all of these things, but they can't justify that. They can't justify, especially in like the stan community, it's like people have this air of like, I'm so liberal, I'm so progressive. So they can't actually state the real reasons that they don't like Chappell Roan, that she's refusing to be an object for them. And ironically, Taylor Swift, despite, performing that role for over a decade, nowadays in her music, she talks about how like she doesn't like the role that was created for her, that she like wants to rebel against that role. So even the Taylor Swift example doesn't really pan out. Like women don't like to be objectified. But I think that is the real reason why so many people hate Chappell. And they've created this whole fantastical narrative about her. They created a fictional version of her to hate on, because so much of what's been said about Chappell is not true. And yet it's been said over and over and over and over again, to the point that people are like, her reputation is that she is like an unpleasant person. Her reputation, based on her actions, is that she is like an unpleasant person to be around. She's aggressive. She's ungrateful. She does this and that. None of that was true. They created this fictional Chappell Roan to get mad at, and now they blame her for the thing that they created.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like, yeah, I think going off of that, it's like, to your point, especially about how like a lot of stan communities want to identify as like liberal or progressive. That's why they like weaponize these like made up social justice concerns, like, oh, Chapel is actually
Hmm.
rich. Like, you don't actually care. You just want to hate her. And then the other thing is like, people will like call her Republican because she didn't want to campaign with Kamala Harris because she like said she'd vote for her in the end and everything. But it was just like, I think that's another part of this is like she like is unapologetic about
Yeah.
these specific causes of like she was against Israel's genocide in Gaza. She like she does so much work for like or advocacy for trans communities. She like has been outspoken about her experience not having health insurance and why we should
Hmm.
all have health insurance. And so it's like so crazy because they'll still call her Republican and whatnot and like attack her for being that or whatever. But it's just like again, it just goes back to like creating this like fictional version of her to be angry at.
Yes.
They can't be open about the real reasons they don't like her because like they don't want to see themselves as people who are homophobic or misogynistic.
I would
I
like,
re- oh,
oh,
I there
you
was
go
this
ahead.
one there was this one specific coalition of like gay male like gay men, white gay men who work in Congress, who work for like various Democratic politicians. There was this specific coalition after Chapel Roan dropped that video talking about endorsing Kamala Harris. I will never forget it. There were all these viral tweets hating on her from people who are embedded within the Democratic Party
Mm-hmm.
machine, who are like, this threatens me because I'm like a queer white person who has signed on to like the Democratic Party establishment. So I'm personally threatened by the fact that this queer pop star who I love is more progressive than I am. And that was like the basis of so much of their ire.
Oh, yes. There are so many competing motivations here that are working in tandem. And I posted about this, but I said it is important to understand that. It is important to understand the motivations behind smearing someone like Chappell, because then you understand how disingenuous this is and why it is a misogynistic hate campaign that it's hard to know. And actually I want to put a pin in this point here because I want to talk about the like manufactured kind of centralized origin point of a smear campaign versus like the decentralized kind of disconnected nature of the internet. But before I get to that, here's the thing. Even if Chappell Roan was mean, okay, let's say that she herself told this 11-year-old child, no pictures. Go away. Okay, I'm having my breakfast, which she didn't, but even if she did, we have to look at the unbelievably disproportionate response to someone like her being guilty of the worst crime, which is not being a very nice person, versus the way that we behave towards men's actual misconduct that harms people, like a Chris Brown, for instance. Chris Brown is selling out stadiums. Chris Brown is not banned from performing in Rio de Janeiro, where that mayor said Chappell Roan will never perform here, versus Chappell Roan, who, if you go, okay, fine, she's what, mean? Is that the great crime that she's guilty of here? So it's the double standards. It's the way that women, the worst thing that you can be as a woman is difficult, is mean. Versus with men, there really isn't a worse thing because there are pedophiles, there are abusers, there are rapists who are still walking around. Marilyn Manson just opened up at the Paris Fashion Week. At the Paris Fashion Week show for, let me pull up it was an American designer who chose to have him. Do you know an enfant riche de prime? It's a brand that defines itself as anti-neo and post. And the American designer Henri Alexander Levy chose Marilyn Manson, who is currently right now in the middle of another sexual assault lawsuit because the judge decided to reopen it. And he was chosen to open the fashion show. And it was a fashion show all about like all about transforming bodies and clothing into a living memory, whatever. So yeah, just one example of the difference here in how men are treated versus how women are treated. And nobody gives a shit in the way they do when a woman is guilty of being difficult and a little bit mean.
And it's so enraging because we are told all the time, both implicitly and explicitly, that to ask for men to be deplatformed due to their violence against women and other people, that would be a step too far. Like, we're asking too much for men to actually be held accountable for committing these types of crimes and violations. But for a woman, she doesn't even have to commit a crime or violation to be held accountable for
Yes.
behavior she may or may not have even done. So to me, all of this says, like, if they really wanted to hold predators and abusers accountable, they could do it like that.
Yes.
They could cut them off completely. They
Great
could bar
point.
them. They could bar them from entire cities if they wanted to.
Yes, exactly. They show, oh, wait, you are actually capable of taking action here. It's just a matter of who you decide to take action against.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is, even if it's not conscious, it feels very intentional because it is constructing and reinforcing this double standard where men are never held accountable for behavior and women are held accountable just because they're women. They don't even have to commit any type of behavior. It's like this double standard enforces the role of women in society as lesser than men, as being forced to be submissive and being forced to like fit these boxes that ultimately like prevent them from obtaining like higher positions in public life.
Yeah, and of course I have people in chat who are already trying to push against this. And the question I would ask is, again, what we just talked about here. So say CHAPPELL ROAN is not very nice, that she's not the sweet princess that I don't know, she's expected to be. Why is that a problem? That's what I want people to examine. Do you think that the global response to this story of CHAPPELL ROAN's security guard supposedly telling this 11-year-old child that they couldn't take pictures, which again, it wasn't CHAPPELL directly, but let's go a step further in this situation here. Let's say it was CHAPPELL who told an 11-year-old fan, I don't want to take pictures right now. I'm happy. Why is it, why do you think that this is an appropriate response? What is it that you expect someone like CHAPPELL, who is a famous woman, who's a global pop star, what is it that you expect her to behave like? And those are the questions that people don't want to examine at all. Why is it that we are seeing so much more outrage here towards this woman who, like I said, if you were to convict her of any crime, it'd be that she's not the nicest person. Why this response versus the way that we see such little response, such little action taken towards men who are abusers, who are rapists, who are pedophiles?
And men, like celebrity men, are often praised for taking these aggressive anti-paparazzi stances.
Yes.
Like male celebrities literally physically assault paparazzi and extras and random crew members on the sets of their films. Johnny Depp, for example, Kanye West, for example. And like this aggressive, violent part of their personality actually becomes a selling point for them. They are viewed as cool. They are viewed as like resisting authority. They are viewed as radical in a positive way. So it's like, the double standard is so stark. And for men, it actually works to protect and shield them from even worse behavior. Whereas from women, it precludes them from having like a seat at the table.
Yeah. Wasn't there just an example with Tom Holland where people were praising him for protecting Zendaya when they were getting out of the car, going to a restaurant, and they were surrounded by paparazzi, and he got in the paparazzi's face. And he was screaming at them, and people went, now that's a man. Now that's a man protecting his woman. And another example, look, I love Bad Bunny. I love Benito, but I saw an example of when a fan came up to him and he took the phone and he threw it. And he was like, get the fuck out of here. And then people were like, we still love you. We still love you. Nobody cares about that. And frankly, like, I don't really care either. If you're getting up in someone's face like that, if you're harassing them, if you're behaving noxiously, then yeah, you know what? He should be allowed to take your phone and throw it and be like, get the fuck out of my face. But it's the difference. It's the difference in how people respond to that when it's a
Yeah,
man
like,
versus a
oh,
woman.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
it's like literally with like the Tom Holland example you gave. Like, I wonder what the reaction would have been if it were Zendaya like defending herself or whatnot. And like with like the phone thing, it's like if Chappell threw someone's phone, I feel like that would be like, no, it would
Oh,
be, I don't even know the
what would even like based on what we're seeing now on this story where supposedly the security guard told an 11-year-old that that he couldn't go up to Chappell. Imagine that she takes the phone from a fan and threw it like that.
I'd still support her.
She'd
Yeah,
probably
no,
be
me too. Same as
she
like I didn't begrudge Bad Bunny.
Yeah, no,
100%. I feel
good.
like Chappell would literally get like banned from the Grammys or something like extreme and institutional if she were to behave this way. And it's like, in a lot of ways, people are creating this self-fulfilling prophecy around her where it's like they are pushing her and pushing her and pushing her, taking her out of context, mischaracterizing her, attacking her, like belittling her in public. They want her to have this type of violent reaction at some point. It's almost like it's like a societal version of an emotionally abusive relationship where you like trigger the victim over and over and over again in the hopes that you can like catch them having some sort of meltdown or like some reactive incident where then you can then frame them as the biggest problem all along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I was even gonna say, I mean, like, even when like there was no context or her side of the story, just kind of what we heard about, maybe some kind of mix up or something with a small child. I was just critical of it immediately. And like, even if like the worst thing that anyone ever accused her of in terms of like quote unquote rudeness or whatever were true, it's just to me, it's like it's taken like completely in isolation of how she's treated, where it's like you're never contextualizing with it with like she's responding to something, like there's an input and then there's an output. And like that just reminds me so much of like, again, like Darvo, or again, like abusive situations where they only ever like take someone who's experienced significant trauma and like their reaction to like, or their behavior being a little bit different, maybe from like people who haven't experienced that trauma and abuse, and just kind of like framing it as like hysterical or absurd or like completely or like crazy and irrational, when like there was like this much broader like what they're responding to. And by now she's been responding to like 2 years of like insane mistreatment. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't
I
know.
I think Kylie, you were talking about this earlier too, but what happens then again is in try in attempting to call out how ridiculous this is, that it is yet another clear example of a smear campaign, seeing people just go in and in and in. Then the response is always, well, but look at this other thing, or look at like, for example, I had posted about this video people keep sharing of a ultra Zionist woman who moved her family from New York to Israel and has posted a lot in support of Israel's genocide. Went as far to say Israel is the most important decolonization project of all time, which is just fucking crazy. And this woman who has she has like some business, she's an influencer. I posted that, and then people tried to go, oh yeah, well, look at Chappell sitting here with Addison Rae, who's a Zionist and a racist, where they do this thing too. And this is another issue I see with stans who use Palestine in their constant stan wars, where they'll always be like, oh yeah, well, your fave is a Zionist. Oh yeah, well, your fave is a Zionist. And it just speaks to this. It speaks to one, this idea that a woman who is victim to smear campaigns, and like Chappell, often victim to smear campaigns, has to be somehow a perfect person, or else the call out of the smear campaign is invalidated, which is that's crazy. Like, no, none of us are sitting here saying Chappell is some perfect person. Nobody is a perfect person. but also two, that it shows that this is all disingenuous because they are trying to retort with anything. And like I said, this is a common staple with how stands behave, where they use Palestine as some type of gotcha, but most of the time, like it's not even correct. It's not even
No, go ahead.
correct. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, no, I'm so glad you like brought that up because like for one thing, like when or like anyone using like Palestine and like Stan Wars, it's like they don't care about Palestine. It's not from a place of good faith. Like it's important to like hold public figures and like famous people accountable and whatnot, but that's simply like not what they're doing. It's about like whataboutism, where they can't actually like address like the substance of like what you're saying or whatnot. So they just come up with what about this? What about that? Any number of things like that. Like
And
it's
then
again,
we'll accuse you. We'll accuse you of doing whataboutism. I've been accused of doing whataboutism by bringing up all these examples of people who are clearly motivated to smear Chappell because of her political positions.
like they do not care about what's happening at all. Honestly. Yeah, but go on. Sorry, Kat.
No, not at all. I mean, it reminds me of two things. Like, one, you see this all the time where women are receive more backlash for being associated with a man accused of abuse than the man ever receives for being accused of abuse. Like,
Yes.
being an enabler as a woman, which sometimes is true, but you just see this disproportionate reaction that far exceeds whatever the actual abuser, who is a man, like receives. It also reminds me of a conversation I had recently with a woman who is a smear campaign victim, and she's just an everyday woman. Like, she's not a celebrity. You're seeing these online tactics affect everyday women and people more and more and more. Something she said to me was like, she has all these Reddit comments calling her like a bully, calling her like an abusive person, a bad teacher, all these different things. And she was like, no one ever said these things about me before I was smeared. This was not ever attached to my reputation in any way, and it's not true. But now, because of the smear campaign, even people who defend her have to start from the position of these allegations, which never would have even existed or been associated with her if it weren't for the campaign. So I imagine the same thing is likely true for Chappell, where it's like before she blew up and got famous, I doubt that anyone she actually knew was like, she's our aggressive friend Chappell. She's our like short fuse temper friend. Like, she hates the idea of being famous. I'm like this. I seriously believe and significantly doubt that like this perception of her that's been created by the masses is reflective of the reality of who she is in the slightest. And I think a lot of people who have, especially women and marginalized people who have any sort of public platform, you become very familiar with this. It's a surreal out of body experience where as soon as you have any sort of platform, people start to view you and treat you like a fictional character, and they invent all of this stuff about you. And you're like, that's not even me. That's like the person you've come up with in your head based on these little glimpses of me that you get online. And it especially affects women. It especially disadvantages women.
I think one of the rare instances of seeing constant smear campaigns, seeing this constant fictionalizing, and then fighting with the fictionalized version of this happening to a man is Hassan. I think there's a lot of similarities here. I mean, the whole Kaya Gate thing, that was global. Like, that was a global smear campaign. And a lot of people, like a lot of times it originates from people who have very intentional, clear motivations for smearing him and for delegitimizing him. But then a lot of other people who participate are responding in a way that is reflective of just either making up their own shit based on just what they see of him or what they see online. Also, Islamophobia, of course. And I think what I want to talk about next, is how do you pinpoint in a smear campaign when something is directly organized, when it's like when it's centralized and connected, versus when it gets to when it gets on the internet, which is so decentralized that it makes it hard to kind of parse through and know where something is coming from, and also know the intentions behind it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No,
Or
you go ahead, Kylie.
no, I was just, like going off of like what both of you said, like especially Kat, like what you said about just like when something becomes attached to you, it just becomes attached to you, and like there's no real questioning of it, especially if it confirms what someone already wanted to believe. I think stuff like again, like the example of Hassan is such a good example because it's just like people like liberal or conservative people can just call him an anti-Semite and no one ever questions like what are you like what's the specific, it's just this thing that's attached to him even though like they're just referring to his criticisms of Israel. And yet, like, there's no questioning of that. It was like the same with like Zoran, where people, like all of these different Democrats were like, I'm not going to endorse him until he apologizes for what he said about Jewish people. And then the CNN pundits will not ask, like, oh, what did he say about Jew?
Right.
Like, and like it's just this complete, it's this thing gets attached to you. It's not questioned. It's like people treat it so uncritically because it just confirms what they already wanted to believe.
100%. And I think to that point about like centralized versus decentralized, like that's when you see it really, I think, breach containment. And I think a perfect example of this is Depp v. Heard, because the way that the quote justice for Johnny Depp movement started was a couple of years before the 2022 trial. And literally, Depp's lawyer, former lawyer, like testified to this during the trial. He worked with 3 specific like online commentators to create information, viral YouTube videos that were viewed hundreds of millions of times, containing leaked material, audio recordings of their fights, like random stuff. And Johnny Depp's lawyer was like sanctioned and thrown out of the case because he leaked this stuff to YouTubers. He did it back in, I believe, 2019. And then by the time you get to the 2022 case, you have this whole astroturfed movement of people being like, Johnny Depp is the true victim, Amber Heard is the true abuser. By the time it punctuates the broader collective consciousness, that is the narrative that has been created. And so now people have to defend Amber Heard from the position of like, I know you think she's an abuser, but here's why she said this, here's why she did this, when the reality has already been skewed through the organized smear campaign. And this is also what Blake Lively is testifying to in her lawsuit, because she's saying like Wayfair Productions worked with the agency groups. They worked with Melissa Nathan, Jed Wallace, and Jen Abel to construct this narrative. And eventually people just believed that that was their own opinion. But people don't question like, okay, well, how did I learn this information? Where did that information come from? How did it end up on my social media feeds to inform my organic opinion? Because a lot of people were like, well, Blake Lively didn't pay me to hate her or to hate testimony or whatever. Like, they're like, I just hate her organically. But maybe you don't.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
you are the result of very specific targeted algorithms and like very sophisticated information drops.
Yeah. And look, sometimes you have these PR companies, sometimes you have these lawyers, you know, this coordinated, centralized effort, and they just have to light the match. And then the misogyny machine does the rest of it. And so, like you said, people go, no, I came to this opinion on my own. I'm not being paid. I'm not being influenced. Yes, you are being influenced. And so, Leave Heard Alone, who's a Twitter account that I think we all follow, said it's become increasingly hard to say exactly where the orchestrated campaigns end and the reality of what our misogyny and AI-fueled internet does on its own begins. And when I think about like the early 2000s with tabloid culture and how so much of the smears against famous women like Amy Winehouse and Britney Spears, to name a few examples, that was very heavily driven by the tabloid / media machine, but it was openly received by the public because of how deeply ingrained our misogyny and sexism is in our culture. But now you have the internet, and the internet is so huge and plays such a vital tool here in communication, which means that this stuff spreads so quickly, and you have so many people who are doing the work that tabloids used to do. And the tabloids are still there. Trust. Daily Mail keeps putting out headline after headline that's getting increasingly more insane. but the tabloids and media aren't as needed, aren't as, I guess, central to how the misogyny machine works in communication, in public communication now, like it used to be.
Mhm. I feel like through social media platforms, each individual user has become the tabloid because so much of the role of the tabloid was to launder misinformation, targeting specific vulnerable people in service of these overarching narratives and overarching like people in positions of power. But today, like social media users do that for
I
free
know.
on their own accord and don't even necessarily realize what they are doing. And it takes me back to the famous Melissa Nathan text message where she was like, it's sad because it just shows you how much people want to hate on women.
Yeah.
Like, with the Blake Lively case, I think two things can be true. One, you have evidence of like clear retaliation that was being conducted by these PR agents, but also like there would be negative articles about her or like viral social media posts, and they would be texting each other being like, "Did we do that? Like, was that
Was
us?"
that us?
It wasn't even them.
I
It
know.
it had then taken on a life of its own. So them lighting the fuse is a perfect metaphor because all it really took was like a couple months of work, like a couple different articles, and like who knows exactly what Jed Wallace was doing on Reddit and TikTok, but like maybe just a few strategic upvotes and downvotes on specific comments. The internet took the rest away and they did it for free.
For free.
Ugh.
I Okay. So what do we do? How do we change this? Because man, when I go and look at snark pages, when I go look at a lot of subreddits that are very pop culture focused, that is where a lot of celebrities and celebrity news is discussed. It is so unbelievably awful, and a lot of the people who drive this are women. That's who are spending hours and hours and are the participants in these subreddits and on these snark pages, and it's really disheartening because when you understand how big of a role women play in perpetuating this, it's you're fighting on all fronts. And I don't know, I'm sure you guys have had this experience, but sometimes the most aggressive and vile hate that I receive is from women who also, it's because I'm a woman, where I think if I were a straight guy, especially if I were a straight white guy who had the positions I had in my pop culture coverage, I don't think that they would come after me in the same way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing, like Kat, you told me about this before, and it just really stayed with me is just like, there were so many women who supported Johnny Depp, and so many of them were survivors or like, survivors of abuse. And like a big part of it sometimes is kind of this like feeling of like, I experienced this and I survived it and I put up with it. So like it's the problem is you if you're making this whole thing out of it and like this hatred, like this envy that this person is like getting sympathy in any way or like getting like making this thing out of like something horrible they experienced that you experienced too. And in your mind, it's just like, oh, you should just do it. Like I think that there's a lot of projection in that way, definitely. Like, and I don't know. Yeah, like that's something that I've thought about a lot.
I know like both Kylie and I speak to this sociologist, Nicole Badera, a lot for our reporting. And I have her book behind me. It's called On the Wrong Side. She writes about this as like she studied specifically the Title IX system on college campuses. And in speaking to victims before and after they reported things to Title IX, she learned that the process of being victimized is politically radicalizing in the opposite direction of what people would think.
Oof.
You would think that being betrayed, but that being violated and then betrayed by an institution would radicalize you. And it kind of does. It radicalizes you into blaming yourself and believing that the system is just and that you are the problem. So a lot of this projected hatred at women like Amber Heard and Blake Lively is internalized misogyny. It is the result of societal conditioning that teaches women to view ourselves as inherently like problematic, to view ourselves as inherently deserving of less, to raise ourselves to standards higher than we raise men to. And you see this a lot even in like pseudo-feminist discourse that just boils down to biological essentialism, where it's like men are evil, point blank period, like women need to like pick up the slack. The reality is, I think internalized misogyny is so key to keeping patriarchy like running and spinning, because women actually have the numbers to
Mhm.
like if women all like joined together in solidarity, like they'd stand no chance. Like we outnumber them so much in so many different ways. But that's why internalized misogyny is so crucial. And within the pop culture discourse sphere, I honestly like, not in a conspiratorial sense, but in more of a just like, okay, this is the reality sense. It feels like a psyop to keep women like focused on tearing down other women. You see that through like the progression of these pop culture spaces.
Yeah.
And then ironically, a lot of people on the left politically are like, who cares about that stuff? That stuff is like not
Yeah.
worth our time. And I'm like, I think this is an arm of like the societal conditioning machine. And I
Yeah.
think when we try to solve it, it's like education is key, and like teaching people about things like Darvo has shown through studies that like it lessens the impact of Darvo. But this past week I've seen a lot of people using Darvo in ways where I'm like, you know the term, but you don't yet know how to
Mhm.
identify power. And you don't
Mhm.
yet know how to identify perpetrators versus victims. And so that is another really essential part of this education that needs to happen, because without it, we're just engaged in this cyclical like process of victim blaming. And breaking out of that is very difficult, much in the same way that breaking out of an abusive relationship is very difficult and typically requires like multiple attempts.
Have either of you read this?
It's on my list. I want to read it so
It's on my
badly.
Somebody in my community recommended this, and it's Girl on Girl: How Pop Culture Turned a Generation of Women Against Themselves.
Oh,
Oh my God,
that's
I
such
love
a good
that you had
title.
it just on hand. I
Yeah.
couldn't count
I
talking
literally
about
am like,
that.
oh, you mean like this book, Girl on Girl? This is by Sophie Gilbert.
Cool.
And yeah, it is all about how it's all about how mass culture diluted, tainted feminism, why misogyny is such a powerful force, why women are used as a tool under this patriarchal capitalist system to contribute towards their own oppression, and why, as you were laying out, Kat, women who have internalized this misogyny, uh, and that doesn't change when you've been a victim of abuse, as a lot of women have been. And in fact, that internalized misogyny contributes to their radicalizing in the wrong direction. And that is something that I see all the time, is people who will say, well, I'm a victim of abuse and Amber Heard is a liar, or I'm a victim of abuse and insert woman's name is the reason that we're not taken seriously.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not the reason that you're not taken seriously. That's not the reason why abuse victims are punished for when they do decide to come forward. Like that's not the reality here, but it's, I think, easier. I think it gives people more of a semblance of control when they can blame someone like a famous woman talking about, coming forward with the abuse that she experienced, because otherwise I think people feel that they will just drown under the drown under the feeling of that they can't take on these institutions, that they can't like dismantle these real power structures that are the reason why the reason why our society is so abusive, and that we do not protect victims of abuse.
Mhm. Something that I think about a lot is how, like, right after Steve Bannon was like kicked out of the White House during Trump's first term, he did an interview. And in that interview, this was late 2017 or early 2018, right at the height of the Me Too movement. And Steve Bannon, who was Trump's chief strategist during his campaign in 2016, Bannon was terrified at the implications of the Me Too movement. He literally framed it as like an existential threat to patriarchy, because I think in a lot of ways it was. And he was like, it's not just the little guys, like look at the big guys who they're like calling out. Like he literally said something to the effect of centuries of patriarchy are at stake here with the Me Too movement. And in looking at the trajectory since then and the backlash to the Me Too movement, that backlash, exemplified by Depp v. Heard, was instrumental to preventing any damage being suffered to patriarchy in a long-term sense. And that backlash continues through the Blake Lively case, through so many of the cases parading across our screens, and the treatment of Chappell Roan, because ultimately the goal here is to erode women's credibility as a collective group. If we believe women, then then the patriarchy is in big trouble. But if we view women as innately untrustworthy and unable to tell a truthful reckoning of like their own experiences, then all of a sudden they don't pose a threat. So in all of these like social movements aimed at destroying women's credibility and like creating these false versions of them, I'm like, this was Steve Bannon's plan. This was his hope. I don't think he's smart enough to have constructed all of this himself. I don't think any of the one man is smart enough to do it all. But it is kind of uncanny how so many of these pieces fell into place through the Depp Heard trial, through Trump returning to office, through the reversal of Roe v. Wade, through all of these various like massive blows to the women's movement.
We also know Epstein was involved. We know that he was personally helping a lot of men who had been accused of abuse from women, usually in the usually kind of in the high profile sphere. We also know that he was behind a lot of misogynistic online campaigns like Gamergate.
And Michael Wolff, like some of our great liberal voices who have opposed Trump were in Epstein's emails, like helping him strategize how he could reverse his own allegations against him. Like it is really striking, I think, as we continue to gain these revelations from the Epstein files. Like so many of these powerful men accused of abuse are like inextricably interwoven into these social backlashes against women who are victims from all walks of life.
So
There's so much solidarity there. It's crazy.
oh yeah. Oh, there's always class solidarity with this group of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think just to go back to what we've said and hopefully illustrated here, but the latest hate campaign against Chappell is that it is that deep, and it is necessary to understand this. Not because the origin of what happened here matters, right? Like that is not what matters. It's the response to it. And it's how it reflects a culture that is still deeply fucked up, and that a lot of people are contributing to this, whether they kind of directly participate or they wave this off and say, who cares? We've got more important fish to fry. And unfortunately, that is the attitude of a lot of leftists when it comes to any news that involves celebrities. And it's not just like, oh, this is celebrity gossip, this is celebrity news, who cares? Which they will also say about cases involving legal cases involving abuse. But they will also go further than that. And when it is, and a lot of these examples are of wealthy, privileged white women, they will go a step further and actually blame those women and say, oh, I saw one tweet where someone was calling misogyny on the left, and they were like, oh, this is so like middle class white woman coded. And people went, okay, thank you for proving the point. And they're like, sorry, but I'm not going to believe that you are oppressed when you are a white woman in the imperial core. Like that, that leftist take, the misogyny is okay as long as it's directed at white women who are wealthy and privileged because of their class status. And so completely ignoring completely ignoring again that this has a trickle down effect. Okay, that most women are not wealthy and privileged, and that this type of normalized behavior and reception affects all of us, but also that like that is still you siding with power when you are going against when you are in agreement with a misogynistic campaign against a woman because she's white and because you only operate from a class position, then you are siding with power still.
Yeah, no, and I think these are like such systemic issues because it's like this is about the tactics of abusers broadly. This is about a broader crisis of media illiteracy and mass disinformation. This is about like feeding a broader culture of misogyny. And so, like it's not celebrity nonsense. It has these deep societal impacts and is connected to these much broader issues. Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I imagine that a lot of the people who are like, I don't care about white women who have a lot of money, like when they're experiencing misogyny, I'm like, well, how much are you doing for women of color? How much are you
Yes,
doing for, you don't even hear about those stories.
exactly.
These are things buried in ProPublica reports that these people are not even reading. Like, let's talk about like the voices of women and children who have been systemically erased, made completely invisible. And it does trickle down because it's like the same exact logic that Blake Lively will not be believed in her sexual harassment allegations and therefore is deserving of retaliation. That's the bedrock of sexual harassment law, is that you cannot be retaliated against regardless of whether your original allegations are proven true or not. And that is a very common problem affecting women from all stripes and demographics, but especially working class women, especially women making minimum wage who cannot afford to leave their job, who are routinely sexually violated by their bosses because sexual harassment law has not been effective in protecting them. And if we weaken it through the Blake Lively case, that disadvantages everyone below her.
Yes, and it is important to understand the intersection of race and class and gender and sexuality, because that further will that is only furthering of oppression for women who are black and brown, who are low income. That look at what happens to women who are white and privileged. And I know you're sitting here going, I don't give a shit because those women are white and privileged. Do you get how much worse it is for women then who are not white and privileged? That is what we are trying to illustrate. And that does not mean that then you can say, like a woman being white, and yes, I know white women vote Republican. I know white women support Donald Trump. That gets back to the whole internalized misogyny thing. That gets back to the also like they look at their position as white people in society and go, well, at least I have that, even though I am a woman. But it's very, very frustrating. And it is this attitude that contributes to the harm that all women, and especially women of certain race and of certain class will experience.
100%.
Like, sorry, no.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say a lot of times people will just like slap white in front of women and hope you don't and like speak about women properly. And these are not people who care about women of color,
No.
who have like a race, class, gender analysis. They just slap white in front of the word woman so that they can just like go after women broadly and think we're all too dumb to notice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My closing statement, because I have to go after this, but ironically, a lot of white women who have been radicalized into supporting Trump likely got introduced to a right-wing pipeline through consuming this type of gossip content online about women like Amber Heard. Because if you look at the influencers who are making so much of this content, they are like Trump supporting alt-right MAGA people, like oftentimes white nationalists as well. So it's like this is a very successful pipeline that is doing the exact thing, that is creating the conditions for the internalized misogyny, propelling women into more conservative places. it's all connected. You can't divorce one issue from the other. There are reasons why white women are more conservative, and it all has to do with these exact same narratives that are reinforced through these cases.
Yes.
Absolutely. No, I also have to jump off, but I guess we're like doing closing statements. It's like
We're doing yeah, let's hear your closing statement on the Chapel Roan trial. As your
I
defense
really
attorney.
exactly no, I literally am, but like I write and report extensively, not necessarily like on celebrity stuff or like pop culture. Like I report a lot on gender-based violence, on like abortion bans, on state violence, and how like capitalism reproduces gender-based violence and all of
Mm-hmm.
things. And this kind of thing is really concerning to me because, it's so connected to this broader like societal push to deny women credibility, to like, to kind of make the tactics of abusers structural in our legal system and all of that. And like it's not celebrity nonsense at all. This is about a broader culture of like misogyny and violence against women and all of the different nonsense ways that we justify it. And so I think that leftists should absolutely be concerned about this kind of thing. But yeah.
100 Pete. You know what? As the judge, my verdict here is that Chapel Roan is innocent and she should be allowed to kill at least 5 people a day at this point.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's hit the gavel. Before we jump off here, what would you like to, what would we like to promote? What would we like people to check out? I know I mentioned your websites and whatnot, but anything specifically that you've just put out?
For me, www.spitfirenews.com. It's free to subscribe. And if you're interested in these topics, I write about them all the time.
I'll be continuing to rant about Chapel, so you can just follow me at Kylie T. Cheung on
Yes.
anything. But yeah.
Perfect. And also if you can subscribe, please subscribe because we're all out here working independently and challenging power, and that means that it makes it that means that you are not ripe for getting sponsors and stuff like that. So if you have the means to, please financially support if you can, but also just read and share and inform yourself and inform others. And yeah, gals, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having
Thanks so much for having us.
See you later. Hopefully we can do this again because people are already asking for you all to come back. So
Love that.
yeah. All right. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let me turn my video. Okay, hold on. I got a sheet. This happens every time. Hold on. I'm going to end that. Then I'm going to put that back on. And then boom, we are back. Okay. Woo! Marvelous Tuna, thank you so much for the 5 gifteds. False Prophet, thank you for the 31 months. Watermelon Wish, thank you for the Prime. H. Huggins, thank you for the Prime. And thank you for listening to that conversation. I hope, as I hope every time, that made a difference, that maybe you came in here with your fist raised and actually sat and listened to what we had to say. And hopefully that changed your perception, even if just a tad. Wonder Gal, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. We just keep going every day. Every day, we try to move the needle forward a little bit. We try and recognize the progress. We also recognize the regression and the backlash so that we can know where and what to keep fighting on. What was the book you held up earlier? The book I held up earlier is Girl on Girl. How pop culture turned a generation of women against themselves. So that was recommended by the community. I'll be starting on that as soon as I finish my current book. Skeletor, thank you for the 39 months. Fried Cassava, thank you for the 31 months. Caroline Kwan should start a podcast. Many people are saying this. Many people are saying that Caroline Kwan should start another podcast. Caroline Kwan should have 5 podcasts. I would love this VOD too if it's going up somewhere. Yes, this will be on Twitch VODs. I only caught the tail end, but it sounded like a great convo. I'll have to watch the VOD later. I didn't even know you were live. That's right. If you're not in the Discord, be in the Discord because I try and post my schedule every week in announcements. So you will know when I'm live and what days and when. VODs expire, don't they? Yes, but we have various VOD sites run by people on the community who will post those VODs. And they also oh God, I need to get a YouTube editor back, honestly. Need to get a YouTube editor back so that they can put this kind of stuff on my YouTube. Okay. All right. So I am wrapped up on that conversation for now. for now until the next time I talk about it. So what I would like to cover here now is the end of SORA AI. OpenAI has shut down SORA AI, which LMFAO, you gotta laugh. Is that a popping sound I hear? Is that a pop noise? Speaking of pop, we've been talking a lot about pop today. Is that in fact what I hear? I think what I love here is how it has been reinforced. It has been shoved down our throats that AI is inevitable, that this is the future. And I think nothing is more indicative of that than these AI companies and programs losing money and people screaming about how they don't want this.
All right, we got some breaking news out of the business world. OpenAI saying it's shutting down its video generation platform, SORA. You see the post here on SORA's X account. Their message to people who used it.
Oh, yes.
What you made
they
with
had
SORA
a $1 billion
and we know this news.
They had a $1 billion deal with Disney that they had that is no longer.
Is disappointing. The AI videos, like the ones you see here, have generated some controversy. Critics saying they're a breeding ground for potential copyright infringement or about deep fakes. Brian Chung is joining us now with more on this. They just had this $1 billion deal with Disney.
Yeah.
They've actually talked about on the podcast. And now it sounds like they're ending their partnership and they're shutting down their doors.
Yeah.
What's going on?
And what was remarkable about that Disney partnership was that it was only in December.
Yeah.
SORA, as a video generating platform, again, the idea is that it's a text to video. You just kind of type in what you want, and then this AI creates that video for you. It was only over a year old. I think it was released to the public in December of 2024. And now you have OpenAI saying they're shutting this thing down. Now, the OpenAI company does say that they decided to discontinue SORA as they focus and compute demand grows. They say that they want to focus on things that are real-world physical tasks. And then Disney, which is the other big aspect of this. As you point out, they had a $1 billion equity investment in OpenAI as a result of a partnership where they said, we are going to allow Disney characters on SORA, again, arguably the most, recognizable library of characters ever. Disney saying in response to this news that they appreciate the constructive collaboration and essentially that they respect the company's decision to close down that particular platform. We don't know what happens with that investment. They haven't responded to the questions about that. But again, this is just kind of showing us how fast things are moving in the AI.
I'm just laughing my ass off. I am laughing my ass off because how perfect this outcome is, that it proves exactly what so many people have been saying, that AI is a bubble, that there has been declining user interest, and the costs of these AI programs being astronomical. I was just sharing with Will last night that Anthropic's 200 a month subs are costing Anthropic up to $5,000 a month. And he seems so happy. Of course, even Disney wasn't really into the deal. Disney's heart was not in this deal. OpenAI pulling the plug on Sora may have been a blessing in disguise for Disney. While Bob Iger likely saw major upside, fans weren't exactly eager to see the Avengers or Frozen characters filtered through a generative AI tool. Yeah, because it's stupid. Because why? Because why? Because why? Internally, some Disney execs feared the deal could risk its IP turned into AI-generated slop. Hollywood unions were already pushing back with the WGA warning that the partnership would cede the value of what we create to a tech company. Yes, there was so much backlash when this deal was announced by Disney, and especially the irony of Disney being such a litigious company. They will sue fathers who put Spider-Man on their dead child's grave.
I wonder if it's about profitability, and I only ask that because, you know, Sam Altman, he's got a lot of pressure on him, and they're trying to take OpenAI eventually public, right? Is this an indication that they felt as if maybe Sora was not as profitable for them, for their bottom line, as they thought it was going to be, hence why they're shutting those doors?
Yeah, different companies feel differently about this. So you have Google and Grok, now that OpenAI has essentially shuttered Sora as the only really remaining big players that have these video generators. Grok's is called Imagine, Google's is called VO, but I should point out Anthropic. That's the big one. A lot of people have been talking about Claude. Anthropic has chosen from the get-go to not do image or video generators. I should point out OpenAI says they're still going to do images, but different companies feel differently about what's the best strategy. I should point out there's also a legal liability aspect to it. Deep fake pornography is a big issue with these types of video generators, and it's just maybe unclear if OpenAI saw that as a potential liability here.
It's major, though, I have to say, really major.
Big
it's
deal.
surprising. Ryan Chung, thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay.
Okay, I want to watch this video.
Is the AI bubble popping? You might have been watching your stocks today and wondering that.
The threat of a bubble.
An AI bubble burst.
Reality check could be coming for AI valuations.
Another day of tech underperformance on some concerns about AI growth.
If the whole thing blows up, which is a possibility, I don't know if it's going to happen, the pitchforks are going to come out for these guys.
For the last couple months, it seems that all anyone can talk about is the AI bubble and mass layoffs. I'm seeing a suspicious amount of "for the first time since 2008" headlines, and looking around, it seems like everyone is cutting jobs. This might just...
Yeah, the reason that they're screaming AI is the future is because they're inflating this, because they've been seeking massive capital investment. So these tech bros are going around and promising that this is, I mean, this is just like the dot-com boom and then the dot-com, bubble popping. And painting this picture of AI being the future, and so get in now before it becomes too late to get in and make a huge profit.
Be life in an AI-first economy. And it truly is an AI-first economy we have here. I know you're already seeing the news, but there is a stupid amount of money going into this thing. Like, Nvidia recently hit an insane $5 trillion valuation. They make the chips AI models run on, and they're now worth more than the GDP of every single country except the US and China. One company making essentially a single product being worth more than, say, all of Big Pharma combined. And AI is way more than just this one company. Total global spending on AI is predicted to reach $375 billion this year. If you exclude all that investment in AI data centers and processing for 2025, GDP growth for the entire rest of the US economy was only 0.1%, according to some Harvard economists. Basically, AI is the economy now. Nothing else is even coming close. And that's all very scary because something doesn't add up with this business. It feels a little Ponzi schemey.
AI investment has surged to 1 trillion over 6 years, and yet broad economics returns remain elusive. $1 trillion.
But first, it's ad read time, because God knows we're not making any money from YouTube AdSense. Thank you, Google. Skip ahead to this timestamp if you hate me and don't want to support my work. This episode is sponsored by SORA, the only cool company on this cursed platform. Google your name real quick. Odds are some of your personal information comes up, right? If I search my name, it's just my public social media profiles. That's because
But
SORA
rich people
is
are
my
smart.
digital
Surely they know
watchdog.
why they spend so
If they
much.
get even a whiff of my data being sold, traded, or exposed in a breach anywhere on the internet,
1 trillion on
including
war
the dark
AI,
web,
why not both?
they track down the source
and it
make
is
sure they have a
both.
bad time.
Yeah.
There are companies out there called data brokers whose whole purpose is to find and sell your data. They do it without your consent, and they make billions selling it to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. They are the worst. Thanks to Aura, they're not my problem anymore. Aura forces them
1.7
to
trillion
remove my data,
in spending
and they
on
keep it
data
removed.
centers worldwide
But
by,
that's just part of why I use and
by
genuinely appreciate
2030.
Aura. It's an all-in-one.
Do you know what I
security
love?
tool.
I love seeing
They
these
provide
stories
real-time
of
fraud
people
alerts for credit
who
and banking,
turn down
24/7
millions,
identity
tens of
theft
millions of
monitoring,
dollars
secure VPN, antivirus,
for the sale of their
controls,
land to
password
build a
manager,
data
credit
center. I
checker,
just saw this
and a
video
lot
of a
more.
woman who
And
was
if somehow
offered
anything
26
does
million, and
happen,
she was
Aura
like,
includes
and I
$5
said, fuck
million
that.
in identity theft insurance, and they have US-based fraud experts on call 24/7.
She's like, I'm not giving
If you're
this
anything
up.
like me, I'm sure you're
I was
sick
like, that
and
woman's,
tired of
that's
these
that's an American
evil little
hero.
companies stealing your personal information.
That diva,
and
I
using it to
know.
make a quick buck. That's why I use Aura. It keeps me and my family safe online. If you're ready to protect your data, you can get 2 weeks absolutely free when you use my link. During those 2 weeks, you'll see exactly where your data is being leaked and who's doing it. Give it a try. I promise you'll appreciate the peace of mind.
Yeah, I mean,
And
they
now,
offer
back to
them,
the show.
they offer them
You
millions,
may have
which is
seen
a lot
these
of
diagrams.
money to most people, right? That is an astronomical sum of money for most people in this world. But there are people who are refusing those deals.
They show how AI companies are in business together. To some
There's an interesting article if you want to learn more about the designer head Marilyn Manson open for their show. It's called How Incels Won Fashion. Yeah, will you send that to
extent,
me? I want to
it's
read
simple.
that. Probably
First, a
probably
company
won't
like
get you on the
NVIDIA
stream,
makes
but
chips. Oracle
my own
buys those
reading.
chips for $40 billion to power its data centers. Then OpenAI makes a deal with Oracle for $300 billion to use those data centers. So far, nothing weird. Except that a big chunk of those $300 billion that OpenAI gave to Oracle actually came from NVIDIA in a $100 billion deal that happened just a few months ago. NVIDIA's money comes from Oracle, Oracle's money comes from OpenAI, and OpenAI's money comes from NVIDIA. Huh. Now everyone's got high revenue on the books. Everyone's stock goes up. And next month, everyone is making a new multi-billion-dollar deal, passing around what looks like the same trillion-dollar check.
this shit is so fake. Markets, money, all of it. It's so fake. It's not
All the
real.
while making bigger and bigger promises to their shareholders that the line won't stop going up anytime soon. And the big three, Oracle, NVIDIA, OpenAI, they're not the only ones playing this game. Everyone in AI
Yeah,
seems
passing
to
around
be
the
doing
same
this.
the
You
same
can swap out
$100.
OpenAI for Anthropic or Google, NVIDIA for AMD, and Oracle for Amazon, and the story doesn't change. But it's not that simple. That $100 billion deal we just talked about wasn't just a one-time transaction from NVIDIA to OpenAI. NVIDIA is now an investor in OpenAI, and also Intel, and also CoreWeave. Everyone is simultaneously investing in each other, sometimes producing hardware, sometimes providing servers, sometimes developing their own models, and sometimes doing a combination of these things. The lines are blurring as everyone is both hedging their bets by spreading their investments around while also trying to be top dog themselves. One circle overlaps with another, and another, and another, and oh my god, is this a bubble? Not according to tech CEOs.
Dario, you've said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20%.
According to everyone in the AI space, even though some of the biggest players like OpenAI aren't profitable yet, they will be eventually. Or one company will be, at least. Eventually, AI will get so good it'll save us, it'll save billionaires so much on labor costs that this investment will pale in comparison. All this hype is justified because AI will take over our jobs. And that's already true, right? A lot of the layoffs we've seen recently have been because of automation and AI. Both YouTube and Amazon recently said so. Except they're lying.
That's not actually true. Like, AI hasn't replaced workers yet. It's maybe changed the way they work a little bit, but we're not in a setting yet where we need less workers.
No one using AI at work is having a good time. Just recently, the Financial Times interviewed a bunch of companies about this. The executives told them AI was this great tool, so useful, and on and on. You know the spiel.
I think what's important to understand is the difference between saying like AI is replacing human labor, because they're trying to do that. It's not about the intent here. It's about the fact that it's actually not effective. And so what they're saying is that the motivations of these tech billionaires who are trying to push this technology and say, this is the future, this is what's going to save you so much in labor costs. They are trying to act as if this has already taken place and that it's already doing well and it's so efficient and et cetera, et cetera. But it's not.
Except when FT then checked with actual workers, nobody was using it. And this is consistent with the research we have on AI adoption. In one study, Gen AI failed in 95% of cases where companies tried implementing it. In another study of 25,000 Danish workers, introducing AI meant more work for about 8% of people. And in another study focusing on programmers specifically, AI made coding take 19% longer on average. And you and I know that programmers aren't the only ones cleaning up after shitty AI output. It's pretty obviously useless for most companies, and will likely only have a limited set of applications. It probably won't be this huge economic silver bullet for capitalists that'll cut costs across every industry. So, why, right? Why is everyone so hyped on AI, and why are all these people being fired if AI is so useless? Because managers always want to fire people. Now, they have an excuse.
And the main reason is that the AI economy is actually driving a lot of the economic stagnation that we're seeing too. It's not avoiding it or delaying it.
AI has given companies a perfect cover to screw workers over. Even though the main story right now seems to be all these layoffs, not as many people know that we're in a period of increased rehiring. At all these tech companies, at least 5% of the workers that are fired, quote unquote, because of AI, are rehired soon after, with that number only going up. And for the rest, some of their jobs are simply put back on the market, just at a lower rate. Like at Klarna. A few videos ago, we talked about how Klarna was replacing people with AI. It turns out that was a bit of a lie. The CEO recently walked that policy back and started hiring people again. Not out of the goodness of his heart, but because AI just couldn't cut it. And he's not alone. Every company is seeing that the labor market is rough right now. Every company has told its shareholders that it was a good idea to invest in AI. But nobody is seeing good results. And that would be a problem if those two things weren't mutually beneficial. But by pretending like AI is changing everything, managers can both let people go and justify how much they've spent on this useless tech. Then they'll quietly rehire a few people and make those still on the payroll pick up the slack. Altogether, thanks to AI, jobs become more precarious and work becomes more intense. It's not replacing people, it's not making things easier, it's just making work worse. Not only are you doing 2 or 3 people's jobs when your coworkers are fired, AI needs constant babysitting, so everyone left is stuck cleaning up hallucinations and extra fingers and yellow tint.
I think that's such a perfect term to describe it as babysitting. It's like you can't just use these programs and then not check the work and not fix when it's fucked up.
And all this boils down to the fact
it's like
that
having to
managers
supervise
and
it.
workers just don't see the same thing. A manager's experience with AI is probably that it writes a pretty damn good email, And a worker's experience with AI is getting a report with 1,000 mistakes that would not have been there if a human had typed it up. Managers don't have the expertise to differentiate between bad and good the way somebody who actually does the job can, which is why you have managers telling FT that AI is great. Meanwhile, everyone down the ladder is doing everything they can to avoid using it. Except managers are the ones who choose who gets fired. So what about this bubble then? If the main takeaway here is that AI is a front for layoffs, that still doesn't answer the question of what happens when investors catch on to how useless it is. Well, we still don't know. From what we've been able to find and from talking to experts, it seems like there isn't a unanimous consensus on the risk here. On the one hand, these convoluted financing networks and overlapping investments could mean a potential crash would be insulated from the rest of the economy and mostly affect the tech industry. After all, the major players here, like Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon, these are all big, profitable companies spending a lot on AI using cash reserves. They are wealthy enough that they could take a loss if AI turns out to be a dud, and it'd be nothing more for them than a bit of wasted money.
This is so incredibly biased, though, and misinformed on the AI utility part. What part? What part of it? Because there are multiple. There's a lot of reporting on new analysis that shows that it's not overall lightening people's workloads and is making it more intense. Nobody is saying AI is point blank evil here. Like that's not what this video is pushing. It's talking about how AI was promised as this tool to make people's work easier that will promise a lot of profit for these companies. And it's not doing that. It's not. It's intensifying workloads. It's not delivering on its investment.
But as time goes on, these same companies are coming up with new financing.
I think there's like this automatic response people have to any criticism of AI where they feel like they have to defend it to the death.
That could be a lot riskier.
Like, bro.
Not for them, but for the rest of us.
Here's a report in Harvard Business Review. AI doesn't reduce work, it intensifies it. This is from this year, last month. In our in-progress research, we discovered AI tools didn't reduce work, they consistently intensified it. In an 8-month study of how generative AI changed work habits at a US-based technology company of about 200 employees, we found that employees worked at a faster pace, took on a broader scope of tasks, and extended work into more hours of the day, often without being asked to do so. Importantly, the company did not mandate AI use. On their own initiative, workers did more because AI made doing more feel possible, accessible, and in many cases, intrinsically rewarding. While this may sound like a dream come true for leaders, the changes brought about by enthusiastic AI adoption can be unsustainable, causing problems down the line. Once the excitement of experimenting fades, workers can find their workload has quietly grown and feel stretched from juggling everything that's suddenly on their plate. That workload creep can in turn lead to cognitive fatigue, burnout, and weakened decision-making. The productivity surge enjoyed at the beginning can give way to lower quality work, turnover, and other problems. How generative AI intensifies work. Through task expansion, blurred boundaries between work and non-work, more multitasking. The broad promises are simply not broadly applicable, though targeted industries where it helps. And if you're in that industry, then you inherently defend it because it does give you utility. Like, I don't know why people get so defensive and try and broadly defend this as if like whatever is applicable in their own personal life and their own personal workload is true for all, and it's not.
Meta specifically has started financing the build-out of data centers in a way I won't pretend to fully understand. In part because it's designed to be opaque, in the other part because I'm not smart like that.
Like, do you understand how a technology like this under a capitalist system, of course, it's going to result in more work and less pay for the human workers, of course, because if it is a tool that is succeeding in making them work faster, then they're going to have to just do more work. Like they're going to have to take on more work because of their capitalist owners.
But essentially, Meta has created tradable securities, financial instruments, using the leases of their data centers. These securities are bought and sold, including by hedge funds that are now getting involved and taking on more debt to finance these data centers being built. There's a concern that if the companies renting out these data centers don't have the revenue to pay their lease because, for example, nobody wants to spend money on AI anymore, that could ripple through this whole network and into things non-tech people have a stake in, like pensions and mutual funds. Eventually, that could mean a crash that slips into the banking sector and affects everyone, not just tech companies. This is a hypothesis that more and more people are warning about in outlets like the Financial Times, which isn't exactly a socialist zine. And none of this is being helped by OpenAI already hinting at government bailouts, or the state pushing AI aggressively into everything from bureaucracy to education, or the fact that to achieve their projected profitability, AI companies are going to need $2 trillion of revenue in less than 5 years' time. OpenAI currently loses money every single time you use ChatGPT. There is a lot riding on them reversing that trend. And if they do, it'll be because they've successfully done the thing that puts half of us out of a job. So, yeah. In the face of all this, it is clearer than ever just how important worker organizing is. This whole racket is currently being held up by hype and managers being able to fire people at will.
Like, you know how work works. Okay, for most of us, this is how it was when I used to work a 9-to-5 too. If you got your project done, but you're still expected to be there till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, then you just do more work. Like, the technology's efficiencies so far has not shown evidence that companies that adopt this tech are then giving, like, that this is resulting in workers getting more of a break. That, like, the efficiency of new tech resulting in making people's workloads lighter. There's not evidence of that because, of course, there's not going to be under capitalist system where they just try and squeeze out as much work from laborers as they can.
The more we can make that impossible, the more we can guarantee that we're hired at fair wages, the more we can resist our jobs becoming executive.
I have done substantially less work since AI. Great. I'm so happy for you. That's not the case for a lot of workers. What do you not understand? That capitalist billionaire owners of these companies are not interested in actually, like, giving human workers a break and making their lives easier. They are interested in the most amount of output, the most amount of profit. Like, congratulations to individuals in here who are like, oh yeah, well, you're wrong because it's been incredible for my life. I use AI in work and I have an AI girlfriend, so suck it.
To the robot, the less this scam works. The more we get people in power who won't be blinded by Meta's quarterly reports and invite them to dinner, the less this scam works. There is nothing inevitable about AI replacing us. AI, as it is deployed in the United States, is a scam. It is a waste of time, money, electricity, and water. No reason to treat it as anything but.
Oh boy, man, what fun topics we've covered today that certainly do not bring out people's takes that just are nails in my skull. People who like to use their individual anecdotal experiences and deny the broader reality. I don't know what to tell you. If this has been something that in your own personal life has really improved things and you have yet, keyword, to experience any backlash from it, then great. Congratulations. I hope it stays like that. So I think this is pretty common sense that AI overall isn't lightening workloads, because that is what the problem has always been. It's not that technology is evil. It's the way that it's wielded by capitalist owners who, the way their business model works is maximum output, maximum profit. So if there is a technology that they can, or at least have been promised, that will continue that on a just upward trend, then they're gonna do that. Marvelous Tuna, thank you for another 10 gifted subs. Thank you so much. So if you are not a worker who's been exploited yet, or had your work increased because of AI, or have just had whatever other issues because of the implementation of AI programs, then great. Congratulations again. But that is not something that then you can extend to everyone else. All I was saying was that AI does have utility, but like all you hear is what you want to hear, which is people just going, which is people just like being absolutist, and that's not what this video was. So you saying, geez, like, no, you just hear what you want to hear, and you go, well, in my experience. Nobody's talking about your individual experience. We're not talking about anecdotal individual experience here. As I said, if the use of this in your work has actually resulted in making your life easier and making your workload easier, then great, like genuinely. But that is not overall what the trend is. Execs are purchasing AI concepts without any actual prototypes, literally spending bank on nothing but an idea. I know. Anyway, okay. I'm too tired. If AI has made your job easier, it's just because your employer hasn't figured out how to exploit you with it yet. Fucking preach. That's what we're talking about, okay? Clocked it. Have you seen the videos of that woman telling ChatGPT she's done horrible things like murder a family or steal a car, and ChatGPT totally gasses her out? They're like, slay queen. I mean, literally slay. I mean, you slayed. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. I've seen all those stories about ChatGPT made me. Anyway, I don't really want to fight about AI anymore. I don't really want to fight about anything else anymore. So I think that's probably good for today. I think I'm probably good. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow, and I will be back at night. So let's see. I'm going to send you guys.
Fuck you.
Great. Madeline Pendleton. Madeline Pendleton is who I'm going to send you to. I don't really know her, but I've seen people suggest her work before, so let's go support her. All right, peeps. Did she pull an all-nighter? No, even when I try to go to bed earlier than I normally go to bed, it's still too late to get a sufficient amount of sleep for waking up at 7 a.m. So, please go do something joyous. Go do something joyous, whether that is take a quick walk or watch something silly or send a text to somebody who you should, maybe your mom or someone like that, and just say, I hope you have a great day. You know, do something nice for someone. If that someone is yourself, great, love it. So please take care. Please remember at the end of the day that we all live under the same sun. We all sleep under the same moon. We all dream under the same stars. We're all in this together. Oh my God. Wait, hold on. I think I just got a raid from Majority Report. Thank you so much. I was actually just sending everyone over to Madeline Pendleton. So let me just say hi. Let me just say hi to all the raiders. What amazing timing. Because at least it was not right when the raid set, which I tend to do often. I will raid someone right as they're getting off. But thank you, Majority Report, for the raid. To those of you who are just getting here, I normally stream at night. If you're not familiar with me or my content, I am a leftist who likes to focus on pop culture news and explain all the time. I explain all the time that culture and politics, there's a downstream, upstream here relationship. So that's what I like to focus on. So I had Kat TENBARGE and Kylie Cheung come on today to talk about this latest CHAPPEll ROAN fuck ass shit. And anyway, so hope you come back some other time when I'm not popping off stream. And like I said, I usually stream at night, so that's also why I have to go, because my brain is still not. Here's the crazy thing. It's 11:43 a.m. My brain is still not turning on. So this is the brain on fumes that you have gotten for the last couple of hours. Because usually I wake up in the morning and I like to have my coffee and I like to read, and I usually I usually am just reading from other people rather than me voicing my own thoughts. So anywho, this is the brain not awake yet. that happens in the mornings. So anywho, I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to restart. I am going to restart this raid. Okay. Nobody else raid in, please. Please. Get that blood flowing. Blood pumping's the happy brain. I know. I am perpetually working on fixing the sleep schedule, because I like to at least have once a week morning streams so that people who are not on my time zone at night can catch a live stream. But damn, it is a constant struggle. Like 1 o'clock rolls around and it feels early. Last night I tried to get in bed around 1, and I was laying in bed and I went, God, it's so early though. It's like, wait, the night is so young. I have so much that I can do still. 1 o'clock in the morning. It's just so early. What am I even doing here in bed? What? I have like at least 3 more hours. Anyway, me as hell. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for joining me this morning, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.